Chapter 343. Seventh Update. Wang Yuba stood up and said to Poplar Fruit in a serious tone, "Brother Yang, I strongly suggest that we postpone the decision on the quota and give us a few months to compete fairly." He looked at the students sitting in the back rows and said, "Although we are usually sloppy and don't study seriously, we don't think we are worse than Xiao Hui and the others. Isn't this quota given to us as a reward to motivate us to study? If it is decided too early, wouldn't it be too hasty? We have no chance to compete at all." Poplar Fruit smiled slightly. He looked at Wang Yuba. This boy who had not been serious since class started now had a kind of persistence and determination in his eyes. Poplar Fruit could not believe that this kind of determination came from Wang Yuba's eyes. Poplar Fruit glanced at the boys and girls sitting next to Wang Yuba who did not have good grades. He saw a kind of desire in their eyes, a desire for fair competition, a desire for recognition. "Do you all think so?" Poplar Fruit asked the students who were ranked lower. A small number of students who were not confident in themselves did not respond, but most of them nodded desperately. Even the students who were ranked in the middle and upper grades gave their recognition, although they knew that even if they were given a few months to work hard, they may not be able to surpass those top students as they wished, but they were not willing to give up the opportunity to work hard. People are not afraid of failure, but they are afraid of not working hard and seeing the opportunity in vain. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "In fact, learning a language is a long-term process of accumulation. I don't think that 2 or 3 months can change anything." After listening to Poplar Fruit's words, Wang Yuba's eyes flashed with a trace of sadness. However, Poplar Fruit habitually changed his tone and smiled. "I appreciate and admire your spirit of wanting to compete. So, I've decided to give you 3 months to prepare. June, July, and August. When school starts in September, I'll give you a test paper. As usual, the one with the best results will follow me to Bali." "Yeah." Wang Yuba was the first to shout excitedly. Following his cheers, most of the students applauded. Poplar Fruit raised his hands and waved to calm the applause. He smiled and said to Xiao Wei and a few other students who were not convinced, "Xiao Wei, are you afraid of them?" "Why would I be afraid?" Xiao Wei was irritated and said loudly, "Give them another 3 months, and they may not be able to catch up." "That's right. With such confidence and no fear of competition, only then will he be worthy of being number 1. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "I hope you can understand my arrangement. The real strong will always believe that they are number 1. However," Poplar Fruit said seriously, "I believe that Yuba and the others will study hard when they go back. I also hope that you won't slack off when you go back. Although the story of the tortoise and the hare is only for children, I'm sure that if you go back and only play and don't study, you won't be the one laughing in Bali next semester." The students under the stage all had a serious attitude and nodded seriously. "Mr. Yang." A girl named Xianjing timidly raised her right hand and said, "I still think it's unfair." "Ha! What do you think is unfair?" Poplar Fruit smiled at her to make her less nervous. "I think that the final exam shouldn't only be a written exam. Translation is also divided into translation and interpretation, isn't it?" Xianjing bit her lower lip and mustered up the courage to say, "I think we should also add the results of the oral exam." "Then how are we going to grade?" The audience began to discuss. "That's not good. It's easy to get a high score if you have a good oral exam," someone objected. Actually, Xianjing's suggestion is very pertinent. Poplar Fruit thought for a while and said, "I didn't think about it very thoroughly. In language learning, we really can't ignore oral French. Otherwise, we'll all be mute French. We'll be laughed at when we go out." However, some students said that the weight of the 2 exams isn't easy to distribute. "That makes sense." Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "Then let's do it this way. I'll give you one more place. The exam is divided into oral and written exams. The oral exam is to talk to me. For the written exam, I'll give you a short essay to translate. The first place of the oral exam and the first place of the written exam will both get a free trip to Bali." Everyone couldn't stay calm. They looked at each other and estimated which aspect they had the most advantage. After all, oral and written exams were different. If they did the right thing, they might be able to stand out. Brother Yang, Brother Yang. Wang Yuba was restless again. He raised his hand and shouted in the crowd. What's wrong with you? Do you want to go to the bathroom? Poplar Fruit laughed. His dry humor got a lot of laughter. No. Wang Yuba said with a straight face. Brother Yang, you see that we have 60 people in our class. Isn't it too little to give us 2 places? Give us a few more places? Do you think that 58 people fighting for 2 places is too intense? Poplar Fruit looked at him with a smile. Wang Yuba nodded desperately. Then you can withdraw from the competition. The other 57 people fighting for 2 places won't be so intense. Poplar Fruit laughed and said. Wang Yuba suddenly shrank his head back. He was scared by Poplar Fruit and didn't dare to raise his head. You are too cunning. If you used this little energy to study, you wouldn't be at your current level. Poplar Fruit pointed at him and laughed. The places won't be increased. There will only be 2 places. Whoever can go to Bali with me, it will depend on your performance in these 3 months. The class was still going on, but Poplar Fruit could feel that most of the people present were secretly holding back their energy. Poplar Fruit suddenly looked forward to the results after 3 months. He wanted to know what kind of effect his sudden idea would have after being heckled. In fact, including the round-trip ticket, food and accommodation, one person would at most cost Poplar Fruit more than 10,000 yuan. This amount of money, for the current Poplar Fruit, was still considered money? The bell rang to signal the end of class. Poplar Fruit didn't pack up. He stood in front of the lecture, clapped his hands and smiled. Well, today's class is over, and this semester's class should be over. The next time we meet should be next semester. I also look forward to seeing the results of your efforts in these 3 months. Of course, I hope you remember. Poplar Fruit said seriously. What you get from me is the happiness of being able to go abroad for a few days. But the endless wealth you enjoy is the real mastery of your own French ability. As soon as Poplar Fruit's voice fell, everyone stood up at the same time and applauded desperately. The thunderous applause lasted for 2 minutes. Happy, proud, and touched, Poplar Fruit suddenly felt that he really enjoyed the feeling of being a teacher. There are still 3 updates today. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 344. 8th update. The roads on Higashiyama University's campus weren't neat because there were too many trees here. Regardless of whether it was the dignified deep green camphor, the bold and simple little banyan tree, or the white kiangxiu that reached into the clouds, all of them together set off the green and exuberant vitality of Dongshan University. Yanghua passed through the weeping willows by the small lotus pond, and walked under the acanthus trees, whose leaves were so green that they oozed oil and whose petals were as red as fire. She happily walked towards Feng Beibei's dormitory building. The lesson just now gave Poplar Fruit a sense of accomplishment. He had a lot of things he wanted to tell Feng Beibei. After another turn, he would reach Feng Beibei's dormitory. Poplar Fruit was about to take out his phone to call Feng Beibei down. However, just as he turned the corner, Poplar Fruit looked up. The scene in front of him made him stop in his tracks and his right hand that was already reaching for his phone. Stunned for a moment, Poplar Fruit took a step back and returned to the corner. Poplar Fruit saw Feng Beibei. She was downstairs, and in front of her stood a boy holding a bouquet of bright roses. Hiding in the corner, Poplar Fruit poked his head out and looked from afar. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Although he could only see the side of his face, Poplar Fruit felt that the boy was quite handsome. He was thin and tall. Of course, he couldn't be compared to Poplar Fruit himself, but he could be considered a little Prince Charming. He wore a red plaid shirt, slim jeans and blue canvas shoes. He looked very clean. Poplar Fruit curled his lips. He felt that the boy's manly aura was lacking. He was dressed like a Korean, so he definitely wasn't a straight man. At this time, Poplar Fruit noticed that Feng Beibei was dressed very beautifully today. The pure white jacquard off-shoulder dress and the 2-piece pleated waist design made Feng Beibei look even slimmer. She was really beautiful. Why didn't he notice it just now? Poplar Fruit could see from afar that the boy was saying something affectionately. Although he knew many languages, he couldn't read lips. However, Poplar Fruit felt that this scene was very obvious. He softly muttered, Is it this kind of melodramatic confession scene again? How boring. But Fong Beibei didn't look bored at all. Poplar Fruit was depressed to find that Fong Beibei was listening to him with a smile. Poplar Fruit thought, is there a need to continue listening? I've watched enough TV dramas. If it's Xueqing, she would have turned her head. This wasn't unprecedented. When he was in university, there were many boys who were defeated in front of Duan Xueqing's dormitory. Poplar Fruit didn't know why, but when he saw Fong Beibei's smile, his heart felt very uncomfortable. The boy seemed to have finished his confession. He lowered his head and held out the flowers in his hands, waiting for Fong Beibei's judgment. She won't accept it, Poplar Fruit thought with certainty. However, his hands were trembling and he couldn't help but have the urge to rush out. Suddenly, Poplar Fruit's eyes widened. He saw Fong Beibei hesitate for a moment before reaching out her hand to take the flowers. As if he was struck by lightning, Poplar Fruit's mind suddenly went blank. He completely lost the ability to think and only blanked out. Standing in the same spot, Poplar Fruit seemed to have turned into a piece of rock, unable to move. This was too unexpected. How could Fong Beibei, how could she accept that boy's flowers? Poplar Fruit felt as if his world had collapsed in an instant. He stared blankly. He saw Fong Beibei smile and say something to the boy. Then he saw her open her empty hand and hug the boy. From Poplar Fruit's angle, he could only see Fong Beibei holding the flowers and walking up the dormitory building. He didn't see the sad expression on the boy's face when he left. After a long time, Poplar Fruit recovered from his out-of-body state. Poplar Fruit only felt that his thoughts were in a mess. He couldn't sort them out at all, and couldn't get rid of them. His entire heart, and even his internal organs were soaked in a thick sense of jealousy. This feeling was not unfamiliar. Poplar Fruit had also experienced it when he was with Lu Yunran. Is this because of love? Poplar Fruit suddenly had a hint of understanding, but it seemed to be too late. Is it because of a breakup? Poplar Fruit felt a bitter taste in his mouth. But I haven't even started dating Beibei. Why didn't he confess earlier? Poplar Fruit knew that he liked Fong Beibei. This wasn't something that happened in a day or two. A long time ago, he couldn't help but want to be with Fong Beibei. He liked the feeling of being with her. Then a few months ago, he figured out that he probably liked Fong Beibei. However, he had been hesitating. He felt that it wasn't time to tell Fong Beibei. At this moment, it was too late to regret. Poplar Fruit knew that he had finally tasted the bitter fruit of uncertainty. However, his daughter was still upstairs. Poplar Fruit took out his phone in a daze. He didn't know what to say, but Fong Beibei brought Kiki downstairs. Fong Beibei was really beautiful. Even though he was disappointed and sad, Poplar Fruit couldn't help but be moved the moment he saw Fong Beibei. As usual, Fong Beibei held Kiki's hand and stood there looking at Poplar Fruit with a smile. She was wearing a pure white dress. Her hair was stuck to her temples because of the hot weather, and her shoulders were round and smooth. Her skin was so smooth and delicate that people couldn't help but have the urge to pull her into their arms. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but admire the girl in front of him. She was so beautiful that it was as if she had walked out of a painting. However, this description seemed familiar. Was it last year when she went back to school to take graduation photos? At that time, Fong Beibei also seemed to be wearing a dress. Poplar Fruit could still remember that it was a powder blue dress. At that time, because Fong Beibei had just graduated from high school, her hair only reached her shoulders. She was by the beautiful lotus pond. Her slim and elegant figure softened the sparkling water. Her devastatingly beautiful appearance made the flowers pale in comparison. Her beautiful eyes were filled with longing. The moment Fong Beibei turned her head, Poplar Fruit could still clearly remember. Whether it was the thousands of flirtatious expressions when she looked back or the mischievous and sly smile, they were all so captivating. The faint fragrance of that summer's wind seemed to linger around the tip of his nose. That was also June, right? Yes, they had already known each other for a year. Poplar Fruit suddenly felt a pain in his heart. Because when he thought that the girl in front of him had already accepted that boy, his heart ached. So I'll leave Kiki to you. Fong Beibei saw that Poplar Fruit didn't say anything and said with a smile, "Oh." Poplar Fruit somewhat stiffly held his daughter's hand and prepared to turn around and leave. But in the end he couldn't help but turn around. Looking at Fong Beibei, he hesitantly asked, "Just now that boy?" Speaking up to hear, Poplar Fruit found that he couldn't continue. "You saw everything?" Fong Beibei asked in astonishment. Poplar Fruit lightly nodded his head. He paused for a moment but still didn't give up and asked, "You agreed to him?" There are still 2 updates today. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to smash the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 345. 9th update. Fong Beibei blinked her clear eyes, shook her head slightly and said, "No. The boundless expanse, the blue sea and vast sky, the vast expanse of stars." Yang's current state of mind was indescribable. Her originally messy and congested state of mind was instantly smoothed out. It was as if she had pushed against a wall, and her entire heart was enlightened. Suppressing his joy, Poplar Fruit stuttered and asked, Then why?" He made a hugging gesture. Fong Beibei giggled and explained, "He was rejected, so don't be too cruel. A hug in exchange for his good mood." She shrugged, as if she had done something trivial that didn't need to be taken to heart. "Uh-huh." Poplar Fruit nodded vigorously. In the past 10 minutes, Poplar Fruit experienced the 2 processes of happiness to sadness, and sadness to happiness again. His mind was still a little messy. Poplar Fruit asked Fong Beibei if she wanted to go to the teacher's dormitory to study today. Fong Beibei shook her head and said, "No, it's almost the end of the semester. I'm going to start hanging out." Fong Beibei's rejection didn't make Poplar Fruit depressed. He was still immersed in his happy mood. After a few words, Poplar Fruit happily brought Kiki home. Poplar Fruit didn't notice that when he left, Fong Beibei, who had already gone upstairs, appeared on the 2nd floor balcony again. At this moment, she looked at Poplar Fruit's back with a smile in her eyes. Fong Beibei's complex emotions intertwined in her eyes. He probably didn't think that Fong Beibei's previous smile was actually a forced smile. This story had to start from when Fong Beibei brought Kiki back to the dormitory. When Fong Beibei returned to the dormitory, everyone else had gone to the bar. Only the carefree Lu Ruhua was still sitting in the dormitory watching a movie. "La la la, Ahua, look who's here." Fong Beibei pulled Kiki in and smiled. "Wait, let me laugh for a while." Wearing pajamas, Lu Ruhua hugged her feet as she sat on the chair and laughed without a care for her image. "What movie? Is it that funny?" Fong Beibei put some of her belongings on her desk and asked doubtfully. "All those years, we chased after girls together." Lu Ruhua was shaking with laughter. She pressed the pause button, turned around and said, "Oh, Kiki is here." "Hello, Sister Huahua." Kiki greeted politely. "Hello, Kiki is so cute." Lu Ruhua smiled and waved at Kiki. "Didn't we already go to the cinema to watch this movie?" Fong Beibei asked doubtfully. "That time, they went to watch it together in the dormitory." "My Beibei, you all went, only I didn't go." Lu Ruhua sighed and said, "I went out with the club for a day, but you all left me to watch a movie." "Uh-huh." Fong Beibei remembered and laughed without any guilt. "Haha, right, you didn't go, it's a big loss." "No, I was only late by a few months." Lu Ruhua said without any regret. "Also, the movie I watched was the original version, unlike the ones you saw in the cinema, which were all edited by some department." Lu Ruhua said excitedly, "Let me tell you, there was a particularly funny scene at the beginning. You definitely haven't seen it before." Hey, don't say it, I'll watch it myself tonight again." Fong Beibei quickly covered her mouth and said. At this time, Kiki walked to the other girls' seats and looked at the delicate decorations on their bookshelves with curiosity and envy. Lu Ruhua pressed the play button and continued watching. She didn't wear headphones, so the sound came from the computer. Fong Beibei didn't pay attention, but Kiki followed the sound. She staggered to Lu Ruhua's seat and stretched her neck to look at the table, but at her height, she couldn't see anything. "Sister Huahua." Kiki pulled Lu Ruhua and asked, "Is it Pleasant Goat?" "Sister doesn't have Pleasant Goat here." Lu Ruhua quickly sat upright again and put Kiki on her lap. She smiled and said, "Do you want to watch a movie?" "Yes," Kiki replied without looking back. She stared at the computer intently. Whether it was pleasant goat or something else, as long as she could watch the computer or TV, she liked it. Children can't watch this kind of movie. Fong Beibei finally took out the tangram toy she had prepared for Kiki from her drawer and walked over with it. At this time, the movie just happened to play to the end. With the movie's interlude, Kujingting hugged the groom and kissed him. Fong Beibei blushed and hugged Kiki, covered her eyes and said, "Ahua, don't let children watch this." "Oh." Lu Ruhua pressed the spacebar again and said helplessly, "You ruined this classic scene again." "Kiki also wants a kiss." Kiki giggled. She allowed Fong Beibei to cover her eyes. Instead, she moved closer and pouted her rosy little mouth. Fong Beibei felt that she was defeated by this little girl. Haha. Lu Ruhua laughed so hard that she leaned on the table and asked, "Kiki, who taught you this?" Kiki turned her head and replied, "Papa taught me." Lu Ruhua's eyes revealed a naughty look. She smiled silently and suddenly asked, "Kiki, did your papa kiss Sister Beibei?" "Hey, Ahua, you're a bad influence on children," Fong Beibei said with a red face. Chi-Chi, on the other hand, thought about it very seriously. After thinking for a while, she shook her head and said innocently, "No, Papa only kisses Chi-Chi." Oh, not only did he kiss Kiki. Kiki was not very sure. She tilted her head and thought for a while, then raised a finger and said, "Papa also kissed Auntie once." Poplar Fruit probably did not expect that the scene of Zheng Yujie suddenly hugging him and kissing him at Lu Yunran's wedding was accidentally seen and remembered by Kiki. After Kiki finished speaking, Fong Beibei's dormitory suddenly became very quiet. Kiki always called Fong Beibei Beibei or Sister Beibei. Whether it was Fong Beibei or Lu Ruhua, they could tell that the auntie Kiki was talking about was definitely not Fong Beibei. Something big happened. Something big happened. After being silent for a long time, Fong Beibei suddenly laughed. She carried Kiki back to her seat and played with Kiki as if nothing had happened. Lu Ruhua hesitated for a moment, but she still did not say anything to Fong Beibei. She kept silent. Because Fong Beibei always had her own ideas, and she also knew that Fong Beibei had a past that she only talked about once. Do you still remember chapter 152? Some mistakes and misunderstandings happened unintentionally, and it happened when it was not under one's control. However, as the saying goes, if you don't seek death, you won't die. It's not that easy to get the beauty back. Poplar Fruit still has a lot to do. However, Xiao Han said that the fruit spring will always be warm and the flowers will bloom. Everyone, please don't worry. There will be one more update today, and 10 more updates tomorrow. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 346. 10th update. Tomorrow's first update will be in 2 hours. After returning home, Poplar Fruit began to reflect on himself. He was too hesitant. After holding back for a few months, he didn't confess. Fortunately, Fong Beibei didn't promise anyone else. If she did, where would he go to cry? Poplar Fruit thought it through. He couldn't go on like this. Wasn't there a poem that said so? If there are flowers to pluck, pluck them straight. Don't wait until there are no flowers to pluck. Poplar Fruit decided to confess to Fong Beibei. Before that, Poplar Fruit had to make sufficient preparations. Firstly, Fong Beibei was about to take the final exam. It was not the right time to confess now. He had to wait until her final exam was over. Secondly, Poplar Fruit also wanted to come up with a romantic idea. He didn't want to confess with heart-shaped candles on the streets. He wanted to give Fong Beibei a unique surprise. Therefore, Poplar Fruit was also preparing in seclusion. Sometimes, Song Jiwen would come over and find Poplar Fruit hiding in the study and fiddling with the computer. He didn't even show it to him. He looked like he was babbling on and on. If it weren't for Kiki sitting next to Papa and giving advice, Song Jiwen would really suspect that Poplar Fruit was watching some educational film to comfort his lonely body. Why wasn't it a lonely body? Wasn't there a sentence on the internet? Loneliness is having someone you love, but the person you love is not by your side. Loneliness is having no lover and being alone. Poplar Fruit could be considered a lonely man who was surrounded by orioles and swallows, but he didn't like anyone, right? Poplar Fruit wasn't as dirty as Song Jiwen thought. He also wasn't interested in paying attention to Song Jiwen. He wholeheartedly prepared according to his plan. There was only one thing that slightly distracted Poplar Fruit. At that time, the Shinda Translation Company was looking for Taba to shoot a video for publicity, and the people in charge of this project were the few people from the minority language team that Poplar Fruit had personally appointed. When the girl named Chu Tong was discussing the script with Moneymaker, she strongly recommended Poplar Fruit. It was said that the idea for Moneymaker's product placement came from Poplar Fruit. After 2 months of discussion and editing, the script was finally completed. Poplar Fruit also received the script immediately. He had to play an important supporting role in it. After reading the script, Poplar Fruit could not help but clap for the beast. This person was really too talented. Although the script looked like a fast-paced micromovie script, it was mixed with a lot of funny elements. The plot was absurd but all-encompassing. The innovative and unique perspective and simple and humorous language made Poplar Fruit's eyes light up. Especially the lines designed in the script. They were funny but also had some meaning. Every time it made Poplar Fruit laugh, it made him think deeply. This would be a very good micromovie script. After Poplar Fruit put down the script, he had a deep feeling. Of course, as an investor, he was also examining the effect of the product placement in the script. In the end, he realized that not to mention the audience who would see the video in the future, just by reading the script once, his brain was about to be brainwashed by the Shinda Translation Company. Looks like this investment is not bad. Poplar Fruit touched his chin, his heart blooming with joy. Of course, Poplar Fruit's appearance this time was on behalf of the investor. There was no remuneration. It was purely free work. Poplar Fruit did not care. He was not a real actor. Just being able to play on the set was worth the ticket money. Moreover, he did not care about that little bit of remuneration. The next day, Poplar Fruit received a confirmation call from the Beast. Although it was not sure if Poplar Fruit was really as good as the professional translators said, the Beast knew that Poplar Fruit was an executive of the Shinda Translation Company. Moreover, in this cooperation, Poplar Fruit could be said to be one of the main driving forces of Shinda. Therefore, the Beast still respectfully addressed Poplar Fruit as Teacher Yang. "Hey Beast, don't be like that." Poplar Fruit laughed. "If you call me that, it will give me a lot of pressure. I'm not that old. You can just call me Poplar Fruit." Although he had been Teacher Yang for a day, Poplar Fruit still seemed to be a little unaccustomed to being addressed as such. "Okay." The Beast's unique and delicate voice made it hard to imagine that the person on the other side of the phone was a middle-sized fat man with a bald head. "Then I'll call you Poplar Fruit. Yesterday, I asked your company's Chu Tong to send the script to you. Did you read it?" I read it. Poplar Fruit laughed. "Your script is so funny. I almost had a stomach cramp from laughing yesterday." "Oh right, what are you going to name this movie?" "I never thought that I'd want to take the West scripture," the Beast replied. Poplar Fruit was an investor. He didn't know if Poplar Fruit would agree to a movie name that had nothing to do with Shinda's translation. "Well, it's pretty good." Poplar Fruit was actually just asking. He didn't want to make any decisions in the movie that the Beast had designed. Besides, if the Beast had a strange name like Shinda's translation, "I want to take the West scripture," he might feel that the name would affect the movie's aesthetic too much. "Then Poplar Fruit, do you think the role I designed for you is suitable?" the Beast asked happily. "There's nothing inappropriate about it." Poplar Fruit laughed. "I didn't know that I had so many scenes. It's okay. I'll try my best to cooperate with you in this movie." "That's really great," the Beast said happily. "We still have a few days to prepare in the early stages. It's estimated that we'll start shooting at the end of the month. When do you plan to come over? I can adjust the shooting order according to your time." Poplar Fruit had unknowingly enjoyed the treatment of a big star. "At the end of the month, no problem. I can come over at any time." Poplar Fruit estimated that Fong Beibei would finish her exams in the middle of the month. After his confession, he could take Fong Beibei to Beijing to play. "Then it's settled?" Poplar Fruit, "Do you have any other questions?" the Beast asked. Poplar Fruit thought for a moment. He hesitated and asked, "Professor, is there anyone who can play the running Zhu Beiji in your script?" The Beast was stunned and said, "Not yet. I'm preparing to ask our special effects artist to make a guest appearance if I can't find a good role." He hesitated and asked, "Poplar Fruit, do you have anyone to recommend?" To be honest, the Beast was a little uneasy. He didn't want to see a sponsor casually put in people into his crew. He only agreed to let Poplar Fruit join after Chu Tong said a lot of good things about Poplar Fruit. "I have a friend who wants to be an actor." Yang Guo could hear the displeasure in Mr. Beast's voice and quickly explained, "I'm just trying to get an audition opportunity from you, Mr. Beast. I'm not forcing him to play the role. If he's not suitable, it's fine if you don't use him." Continue reading tomorrow. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Everyone, please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 347. After listening to Poplar Fruit's explanation, the man's tone softened a lot. He was a man of principle after all. However, as long as Poplar Fruit did not force him, everything was negotiable. "So that's how it is?" The Beast asked. "Yang Guo, is that friend of yours an acting major?" "No." Poplar Fruit denied repeatedly and laughed. "He started out as a martial artist and his footwork is pretty good. I think, other than his figure, he's very suitable for this character who often performs escape scenes. It doesn't matter if he's a little thin. Our movie is actually trying to subvert the audience's perception," the man said. "Poplar Fruit, do you have any video of him? I want to make a preliminary judgment." Video. Poplar Fruit was stunned for a moment. He had not known Cheonjuan for long. How could he have any video of him? "I don't, but I can ask him to film one for you tomorrow." "What kind of video do you want?" The man thought for a moment and said, "Didn't you say he's good at running? Then let's do a parkour video, and make him look funny." This was a little more difficult. The man wanted to raise his bar. Otherwise, he would not be able to film his movie if he kept shoving people in. "Okay. No problem." Poplar Fruit agreed immediately. He decided to let Cheonjuan act a parkour scene according to the plot in the script. "Oh right." Poplar Fruit became a little hesitant at this time. "Beast, I saw that the special effects in your videos are very good. Can I ask you for a favor?" Afraid that the man would misunderstand, he hurriedly added, "This has nothing to do with the company. I can pay for your labor." "What do you need our help with?" Poplar Fruit's words piqued the Beast's interest. It didn't discuss the cost with Poplar Fruit, but asked directly. "It's like this." Poplar Fruit told the Beast about his plan to confess to the girl he loved, and then said, "That video, my skills are too bad. No matter what I do, I can't get it right. That's why I wanted to ask you guys to make it look good." "Haha." The Beast laughed and said, "I thought you had something important to do. So it's just to help with a video. No problem, it's very simple. Send us your source material or first draft, and we'll finish it in one night." As for the labor cost, the Beast laughed. "It's just a small matter. We don't need to pay for it. If our videos can help you, we feel that it's worth it." "Thank you. Okay, I'll treat you guys to a meal when I get back to Beijing." Poplar Fruit happily hung up the phone. After putting down the phone, Poplar Fruit hugged Kiki and kissed her fiercely. He smiled and said, "Kiki, Daddy finally doesn't have to worry so much anymore." These past few days, making this video had really worried him to death. Without further ado, Poplar Fruit hurriedly went to find Cheonjuan. After Cheonjuan was caught by Poplar Fruit, he became much more stable. He didn't go on any more missions. In the past few months, he went to a rural area on the outskirts of Yangcheng, bought a big yard, and built a house. Before the village and the city was collectively demolished, he moved the ancestral tablets of his sex seniors there, which could be considered as fulfilling his wish. When he saw Poplar Fruit, Cheonjuan almost cried. After so long, he thought that Poplar Fruit's words were just to comfort him. He didn't expect that Poplar Fruit really cared about his future. After listening to Poplar Fruit's explanation of the micro-movie, Cheonjuan didn't mind that the role was too small, and the movie's investment was too little. He was already very satisfied to have a chance. After explaining the plot to Cheonjuan, Poplar Fruit asked, "How is it? Do you understand?" "Understood." Cheonjuan nodded and said solemnly, "Give me some time to prepare." After saying that, he ran to a corner to think about it. Poplar Fruit was a little bored and picked up the tools used to shoot the video, the professional DSLR that Chae-in used. Poplar Fruit also bought a DSLR, but it wasn't as good as Chae-in's, so he didn't bring it. Looking at the huge Zeiss lens that cost tens of thousands of yuan, Poplar Fruit pursed his lips. It was said that DSLR cameras were poor for 3 generations. It wasn't wrong at all. This lens, along with the other lenses in Chae-in's bag, was worth more than 150,000 yuan. Chae-in was willing to spend so much money on a lens while he himself was poor and frugal. Chae-in could be considered a weirdo among weirdos. The lens was a little expensive, but the principle of using a DSLR camera was the same. Therefore, Poplar Fruit was quite comfortable with using it. Stand there, stand there. Yes, don't move. Come, give me a smile. Okay. Let's take another one. While trying it out, Poplar Fruit teased Kiki and took a few beautiful photos of her. Looking at the photos he just took with Kiki, who was curiously looking at the small screen, Poplar Fruit proudly found that the high-definition camera and his first-class photography skills made the photos look quite good. Especially in this photo, Kiki covered the sun behind her. Her whole body was radiant like the Guanyin Bodhisattva, and her hair was also shining. Moreover, Yanghua had also exposed the surrounding areas with high light, so Chi-Chi's innocent smile could still be seen clearly even under the backlight. It was like those little fresh photos that were very popular on the internet. Poplar Fruit took a few more photos, so that he would have material for his Weibo. Recently he posted less on Weibo, and his fans were making a fuss. When taking photos of Kiki, Poplar Fruit's technique was really good. However, when it came to video shooting, Poplar Fruit was a complete novice. Although Poplar Fruit could control his hands so that the camera wouldn't shake too much when he moved, his bad angle and messy combination of long and close shots ruined Chae-in's performance. I'm going to faint. After 3 consecutive NGs, Chae-in walked over and took the DSLR camera from Poplar Fruit's hand. He looked at him helplessly and said, "Run like I just ran again, and I'll take a photo for you." Poplar Fruit could simply imitate Chae-in's movements. In terms of body movement, Poplar Fruit was slightly inferior, but Poplar Fruit had the support of internal energy. His breath was long and his body was light. His running speed was not necessarily worse than Chae-in's. His mind had long recorded the trajectory of Chae-in's running. Poplar Fruit ran along this trajectory from the beginning, dodging the big tree, jumping over the low wall, bricks and tiles, and finally jumping up the high wall. Like riding a horse, he looked back and smiled. It was a bit difficult to make Poplar Fruit make the same expression. He simply didn't learn how to act. He learned how to make all kinds of exaggerated expressions along the way, but none of them were done properly. Looking back, he also smiled foolishly, far worse than Chae-in. There will be 10 updates today, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, take your votes and throw them at the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 348. Second update. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit was just running around, and then Chae-in filmed it and showed it to Poplar Fruit how to stand and adjust the lens of the camera. Almost one more time. Chae-in changed to another point this time, raised his hand and shouted, "Haha! Come on, Papa!" Kiki jumped and clapped. At first, she wanted to follow her father and run from the side. Poplar Fruit was worried that Kiki would affect Chae-in's shooting, so he quickly coaxed her away. With his daughter's encouragement, Poplar Fruit completed it better than the last time. Unfortunately, he was not the protagonist, and Chae-in was just giving him a demonstration. "I'm done. Come and take a look." Chae-in called Poplar Fruit over and handed the SLR to Poplar Fruit. Then he ran to the side and unscrewed his own bottle to drink water. He was so thirsty. Looking at Chae-in's video, Poplar Fruit understood what professional was. Of course, Chae-in wasn't a professional videographer. However, he spent a lot of time outside secretly taking pictures of other people. When he was bored, he figured out a lot of tricks to using a DSLR. Now the video he shot was no worse than a professional videographer. "Just shoot according to this?" Chae-in asked. Poplar Fruit nodded. Although he couldn't shoot as well as Cheonjuan, he could still draw a similar picture. During the first shoot, Poplar Fruit didn't seem to find the right position, and Cheonjuan quickly came over to guide him. The second time they NG'd again. This time it wasn't Poplar Fruit's fault, but Cheonjuan himself. In fact, it wasn't Cheonjuan's fault. It was because the naughty Kiki suddenly ran out and made a face at him. Cheonjuan went around the tree and looked up. When he saw Kiki's funny little face, he was happy and laughed. This was only the beginning. Cheonjuan was distracted and did not pay attention to his feet. As a result, he kicked a grass pit and almost fell to the ground. Kiki, come here. Don't disturb Uncle Che. Poplar Fruit couldn't stop laughing. He finally managed to get Kiki to come back. After 2 more takes, Cheonjuan was so tired that he was panting. However, the final result was much better. Holding the DSLR, Poplar Fruit looked at Cheonjuan's performance on the small screen. He felt that it was a waste for this guy not to walk the path of an actor. She wondered if it was because of her good skills as a private investigator that she had developed. As a private detective, he often faced the danger of being discovered when he was following someone. After all, some people had a naturally sensitive sixth sense. This was a test of one's acting skills. In the past, Cheonjuan had followed Poplar Fruit in school. When Poplar Fruit turned around, he did not notice him at all. At that time, this guy instantly turned into a young junior and acted very well. Regardless of whether Cheonjuan's acting skills were innate or acquired in this video, he was able to portray Zhu Beiji's comical expression of panic, fear, and peace of mind when he was trying to escape from the script. Perhaps the cowardly Zhu Beiji was supposed to be like this. Poplar Fruit had such a thought in his mind. To be able to act so vividly and give people the feeling that it was real, this should be considered a huge breakthrough, right? How was it? Cheonjuan took big gulps of water and asked anxiously, "Do you want to do it a few more times?" Poplar Fruit raised his head and smiled. "No need. This time was pretty good. Your acting was great." "Really?" Cheonjuan asked excitedly. "I said it was okay. This has to be approved by others." Poplar Fruit smiled. "Give me the memory card first. I'll send it to the beast when I get back. I'll let you know if there's anything else." Cheonjuan said gratefully. "Understood, understood." Poplar Fruit wanted to go back. Cheonjuan habitually asked him to stay. "Poplar Fruit, you're leaving so early? Don't you want to stay for dinner?" "No need." Poplar Fruit climbed into the Land Rover and smiled. "Besides, you just moved in. The stove hasn't been set up yet. How can you eat? Just remember it first." After returning home, Poplar Fruit sent the video to the beast. Just as Poplar Fruit said, whether Cheonjuan was good or not was not up to Poplar Fruit to decide. It was up to the beast's opinion. It had to be said that Cheonjuan's acting skills were really good. Less than 2 hours after Poplar Fruit sent the video, the beast called. At that time, Poplar Fruit was playing the hottest ethnic trend square dance video for Kiki in the living room. Kiki wiggled her little butt and imitated the aunties dancing. Kiki's dance was only half of the movement and was intermittent. But Kiki was too cute. Seeing her swinging her hair and wiggling her little butt, Poplar Fruit could not help but slap his thigh and laugh. The beast's call was drowned out by the rich sound of the hottest ethnic trend music. He persevered and called one after another. Fortunately, on the third call, Poplar Fruit finally noticed. "Hello, beast, sorry." Poplar Fruit was about to apologize for not paying attention to the call. But just as he spoke, he was interrupted by the beast. "Poplar Fruit, where did your friend come from? His acting is too good." The beast exclaimed exaggeratedly on the phone. "Really?" Poplar Fruit was overjoyed and asked, "Do you think he's suitable for the role of Zhu Beiji?" "In terms of expression, movement, and acting skills, he's the perfect candidate," the beast said. But his tone took a turn. "But your friend is a little too handsome and too skinny. He's too different from Zhu Beiji." Was Cheonjuan handsome? Poplar Fruit did not think so. However, after hearing the beast's words, Yonghua thought about Cheonjuan's fair skin and high aquiline nose. He looked very exotic. Looking at him carefully, he was a little handsome. Perhaps he would suit the tastes of most young women. "Then beast, what do you mean?" Poplar Fruit asked uncertainly. Haha, with such a good actor, of course we'll use him. But the script might change because of him. That's okay, we just want to subvert people's perception of Zhu Beiji. The beast laughed and said, Poplar Fruit, help me tell your friend that I'll give this role to him. Tell him to come to Beijing to find me as soon as possible. Okay. Poplar Fruit agreed happily. He did not expect Cheonjuan's matter to go so smoothly. At first, Poplar Fruit thought that Cheonjuan might need to be like Sun Wukong, who had to go through 81 difficulties. In the end, Cheonjuan solved the problem with a video and did not even need a second audition. People still had to rely on their abilities to speak. So Cheonjuan's matter of becoming an actor was settled. He finally walked on the path of stardom that he had wanted to walk but did not have the connections to do so. There will be 10 chapters today. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 349. Third update. Poplar Fruit was the one who sent Cheonjuan to the capital. Even though she had only been in the profession for a little over a year. Even though the so-called martial arts of today were like an old man with no future, Yang still had a passion for martial arts. It was just like when he read Elder Jin's novels back then. He couldn't bear to part with this martial arts world that was filled with gratitude and revenge. Of course, in the modern society, it was impossible to break the law with martial arts, and it was not allowed to take revenge. For most people, the law was a red line that they did not dare to cross. But Poplar Fruit saw Cheonjuan, who also had a passion for martial arts and tradition. He did not hesitate to do some work that people looked down on in order to pass on the sect, but he still wanted to help him to get on the right path and get out of trouble. That was why today's result was achieved. However, Yang didn't expect that the little bit of effort he put in would be repaid by Che-jun. What are you doing? Sitting in the driver's seat, before he started the car, Poplar Fruit saw Cheonjuan, who had just packed his luggage and got in the car, hand over a red silk bag from the back seat. Is it for Kiki? Kiki, who was sitting in the baby safety seat, turned her head and asked happily. Yes, it's for you. Cheonjuan smiled at Kiki. It's to thank your father for his kindness. Poplar Fruit frowned and said, Brother Jun, what are you doing? Don't tell me I'm helping you just for your money. Cheonjuan rolled his eyes and said, Poplar Fruit, look at your eyes. Is this money? If it's money, I won't give it to you. Cheonjuan said with a bit of ridicule. You can drive a 1,000,000 yuan Land Rover. My little money, do you think it's enough for you? Don't make me sound so vulgar. What do you mean I don't think it's enough for me? Poplar Fruit said unhappily. Money is not the standard to measure a person. I don't care if it's money or not. Just keep it. I don't want it. Kiki bit her finger. She looked at her father, and then looked at the thing wrapped in red cloth. She didn't understand why they were pushing it back and forth. Why don't you open it and take a look first? Cheonjuan laughed. Let's talk about it later. What? You're so weird. The Poplar Fruit reluctantly removed the silk cloth, and saw an exquisitely printed thread-bound book. The title of the book was 8 Steps Meteor Kick. Your sex secret manual? Poplar Fruit shook his head violently and said, Then I can't take it. Poplar Fruit. Cheonjuan was anxious and said, I know that your kung fu is powerful and you may not be interested in our sex kung fu, but this is the best way I can think of to thank you. Your hand kung fu is very strong, but your leg kung fu is still lacking a little bit of maturity. I didn't see it wrong. If we have a fair competition of leg kung fu, and nothing else can be moved, then I will definitely win. Cheonjuan said. If you want to go further in kung fu, this book can help you a lot. That won't do. Poplar Fruit insisted. I'll help you. That's my willingness. I accept your secret manual. That means I'm plotting to steal your sex kung fu. Moreover, if you give me this book, that's also treacherous and revealing the sex secret. Now I'm the only one who knows 8 Steps Meteor Kick. Can it still be called a sect? There are still secrets there? Cheonjuan said bitterly. Up to now, 8 Steps Meteor Kick actually exists in name only. Although I don't want to admit it, I really have no way to give this sect a new life. You can do it. Poplar Fruit persuaded. You don't have to be so pessimistic. If you become a big star in a movie, then you can promote 8 Steps Meteor Kick. Just like Jeet Kune Do, isn't it also famous because of Bruce Lee? It's not the same. Chae-in-juan sighed and said, Bruce Lee was a great master of his generation. His kung fu was self-contained. As for me, I'm relatively stupid when it comes to kung fu. 8 Steps Meteor Kick also lacks a lot of previous kung fu moves. Only the body kung fu is left. Even if I become famous, there's no way to revive 8 Steps Meteor Kick. Poplar Fruit was silent. He understood what Chae-in-juan meant. How difficult was it to turn the tide with one's own strength in this era, where kung fu was declining? What's more, 8 Steps Meteor Kick was not a very famous sect in history. Speaking of kung fu, it was not comparable to Wudong and Shaolin, which had thousands of years of accumulation. Just accept it. If you feel that this way of saying thank you is unacceptable, just think of it as sharing with a kung fu friend. Chae-in-juan persuaded. I can't do it, but if our 8 Steps Meteor Kick can be used well by you, I believe that the ancestors of our sect will be very happy. All right, I'll accept it. Poplar Fruit stopped talking. He wrapped the red cloth again and put it away solemnly. He turned around and said, Let's go. If you don't go now, you'll miss the plane. After seeing Chae-in-juan off, he went back home and settled down Kiki, who fell asleep while enjoying the scenery. Poplar Fruit sat in the living room and felt a little bored. After thinking about it, he opened the secret book given by Chae-in-juan. Since he had accepted it, he would read it openly. If he continued to be coy, it would be hypocritical. Although it was called a secret book, it was actually a book organized by Chae-in-juan based on the handwritten manuscripts of his ancestors. He found someone to print it out, and then made it into a thread-bound book. It still doesn't have a picture. Poplar Fruit looked at the secret book and felt a little depressed. When it came to body movements, how could one accurately understand the range and strength of the movements by just relying on the description of the words? Just like some recipes that said, put in the right amount of salt. Who knew how much salt was the right amount? If it was too much, it would be too much. If it was too little, it would not be enough. In the end, it still depended on one's own experience. Such a secret book was too irresponsible. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit could still understand the description of some of the acupuncture points, muscles, and bones in the book. This was all thanks to the secret books he found on the internet at the beginning of the year. Those books were all written in ancient language, or terms that were commonly used in the past. There were also some annotations with modern terms. With this comparison, Yang Guo was able to understand it. After reading this book, Poplar Fruit realized that the 8 Steps Meteor Kick wasn't as simple as what Chae-in-juan had shown. This guy seemed to have only learned the tremble formula, leap, wave turning, inch piercing in the tremble formula, leap, wave turning, inch piercing. There were more after that. It was indeed a pure martial arts technique. After Poplar Fruit read it once, he had a little bit of inspiration. He could feel that there were many areas where his body movements could be improved. This made Poplar Fruit interested. He decided that starting tomorrow, he would add a practice of the 8 Steps Meteor Kick in the morning training. Maybe it was really like what Chae-in-juan said. This martial arts technique could be of great help to him. There will be 10 chapters today. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 350. Fourth update. La 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 la. I'm an expert in selling newspapers. Kiki opened her small hands, sang the new children's song, and ran happily in the living room, followed by the fluffy Gold. Gold's neck was now tied with a collar with a bell. As Gold grew bigger, sometimes when it went out, Poplar Fruit couldn't let it run around willfully. Although it looked harmless, the golden retriever was still a large dog. Kiki ran to the front of the kitchen, pushed open the sliding glass door of the kitchen, and asked with a smile, Papa, is it done? The gap was pushed open by Kiki, and Gold also curiously put its head in. Following Kiki, it looked up at Poplar Fruit, and its long ears trembled slightly. Not yet. How many times have you asked? Poplar Fruit smiled, patted Kiki's little head, and said, Play in the living room, Don't go around, the oil and smoke on the door is on your head. Kiki thought it was very funny, and laughed and shrank her head back. The door was opened, and Song Jiwen casually walked in. He glanced at Poplar Fruit busy in the kitchen, and asked Kiki, "Kiki, what delicious food did your papa make today?" Kiki looked at him with vigilance, and slowly moved to the middle of the road between Song Jiwen and the kitchen. She shook her head and said, "I won't tell you." "Why?" Song Jiwen curled his lips and said, "Did you two secretly hide the delicious food, and not give it to Uncle Mosquito?" "I won't give it to you." Kiki put her hands on her waist like an adult, puffed out her chest, and said angrily, last time, you ate that." Kiki didn't know how to pronounce the name of that dish. "Braised pork trotters?" Song Jiwen reminded her. "That's right, you didn't share, Kiki, you big jerk." Kiki said angrily. Last time, Song Jiwen refused to share the fragrant pig trotters with Kiki. Kiki still remembered that. "That's what your papa said. You can't digest pig trotters." Song Jiwen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He realized that Kiki was the same as Poplar Fruit. Both of them were foodies. They had a strong desire for food, and were especially vengeful. You can't pass." Kiki pouted, turned her head, and stood there with open arms. "Woof!" Goldie loyally stayed by Kiki's side and barked at Song Jiwen. "Have you forgotten about the ham I gave you last time?" Song Jiwen discontentedly criticized the ungrateful Goldie and said, "It barked at me, it's really fed to a dog." "I'm a dog, haha." At this time, Poplar Fruit pushed open the door of the kitchen and came out, laughing loudly. "What delicious food did you make?" Song Jiwen smelled the aroma a long time ago and excitedly came over. "This is Kiki's." Kiki was anxious. She quickly ran in front of her father, and looked back at Song Jiwen with vigilance. "Yes, this is Kiki's." Poplar Fruit put a plate with a small iron lid on the table and rubbed Kiki's hair with a smile. Then Poplar Fruit shrugged at Song Jiwen and said, "You definitely won't like it, so we'll cook it later." "What is it?" Song Jiwen's stomach was aroused by Poplar Fruit. He sat at the table and said, "How do you know I won't like it?" Seeing this, Kiki hurriedly went in front of her father, and wanted to climb up the chair. With Kiki's current height, it was impossible for her to climb up the chair, but for Kiki, she had the best partner, Goldie. Without needing Chi-Chi to call out to it, Goldie eagerly ran to Chi-Chi as if it had a telepathic connection with her. It obediently lay down and allowed Chi-Chi to step on its back. Using the 20 centimeters of height, Chi-Chi struggled to climb onto the chair. Poplar Fruit quickly picked her up, rubbed her little head and said with a smile, "Don't worry, it's all yours. Wait for Dad to take the porridge out for you." When he left, he didn't forget to look back. Poplar Fruit reminded Song Jiwen, "Don't move, or Kiki will really hate you next time." Song Jiwen resentfully retracted his restless hand. Poplar Fruit weighed out the porridge that was slightly overcooked in Kiki's small bowl, moved Kiki's special dining chair, and carried Kiki up. "What is it? What is it?" Song Jiwen craned his neck to look. "Braised tofu." Poplar Fruit smiled and opened the lid, revealing the mysterious food on the plate. "You definitely don't like it, right? Tisk tofu and no meat. It's not delicious, not delicious." Song Jiwen, who couldn't be happier without meat, shook his head in disdain. "Why did you think of making this?" Poplar Fruit had long expected this guy's expression. He smiled and said, "A few days ago, I watched the popular China on a Bite of China on the internet. I felt that the tofu was not bad. It was soft and nutritious, especially suitable for Kiki, so I gave it a try." Poplar Fruit's braised tofu was not the kind of braised tofu made with chili. His tofu looked very red, but in fact it was a sauce made with tomatoes, an all-natural tomato sauce. Under Poplar Fruit's exquisite knife skills, the muddy tofu was cut into small round balls, just like meatballs. In order not to destroy the structure, Poplar Fruit basically fried every piece that was cut, and only fried the surface layer until it was slightly golden. Then he took it out. This way it would not be too hot. Then he added some tomato sauce and some seasonings and braised the tofu balls. Poplar Fruit did not use a spatula. He relied on his own arm strength to shake the iron pot, so that the sauce and the tofu balls were well mixed. He let the taste of the tomato sauce, permeate the tofu balls before finally taking it out of the pot. Actually, it was not very difficult. The most important thing was the control of the heat. If the knife skills were not good, the tofu would not look that good. However, this dish was extremely delicious for Kiki. The thick, sour and sweet juice of the tomatoes, and the smooth and fragrant taste of the tofu. Poplar Fruit had tried it once yesterday, and Kiki liked it very much. The show said that tofu was rich in protein and various mineral elements, and tomatoes were also rich in vitamins. The combination of the two was even more beneficial. At this stage, Kiki needed to replenish her nutrients the most. However, Kiki could not eat too much meat, because meat was hard to digest. Poplar Fruit made all kinds of delicious food for Kiki. During this period of time, he found a new source of inspiration. It was the popular A Bite of China that had been airing for the past few months. The show allowed Poplar Fruit to taste the various delicacies of their country, and it also stimulated his interest in cooking. It was only then that he realized that on a small dining table, there were so many different kinds of dishes that could be made. Song Ji-wen also watched the show. He did not have any interest in tofu, but with so many meat delicacies on the show, it really made him salivate. At this time, he had started to pester Poplar Fruit to make him a serving of steamed pork with cinnamon. There will be 10 chapters today. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 351. Fifth update. Poplar Fruit went to school today and asked Fang Beibei to take care of Kiki. Then he went to find the dean, Chen Zongdai, to report the results of his studies during this period of time. Chen Zongdai was very satisfied with Poplar Fruit's performance after returning from his hometown. This was not only because Poplar Fruit was diligent in going to school, but also because Poplar Fruit's study progress was almost 1,000 miles a day. This was much faster than Chen Zongdai's original estimate. He originally thought that Poplar Fruit would study for a year as a postgraduate student, and then bring him along to work on projects. However, judging from Poplar Fruit's mastery of linguistics, Chen Zongdai calculated that Poplar Fruit could become his right-hand man around the next semester. However, I am not very satisfied with your so-called reward. In addition to being satisfied, Chen Zongdai was also quite dissatisfied with Poplar Fruit's preparation of 2 Bali travel spots for the students during the class. Although you have stimulated their enthusiasm to learn to a certain extent, where do you put the other teachers? They are not as generous as you. And it is impossible for the institute to allocate money in this area. There are several teachers who came to me to complain about you. Although Chen Zongdai scolded Poplar Fruit for this proud disciple, Chen Zongdai still made a strong performance of protecting him, and rejected the teachers who came to complain one by one. I am sorry, Dean. I didn't think about it thoroughly and brought you trouble. Poplar Fruit thought about it after the class and felt that it was indeed a bit inappropriate. However, the words that were said were like spilled water, and there was no way to take it back. How about we deal with it like this? Dean, what do you think? Poplar Fruit scratched his head, and an idea came up in his mind. He said, this time, we will use the name of Xinda Translation and say that Xinda Translation wants to promote their influence. So they organized a competition among the students, and the winner will get the opportunity to travel abroad. Can you persuade Xinda? Chen Zongdai raised his head and looked at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit had told him before, and Chen Zongdai still knew that Poplar Fruit had a certain say in Xinda Translation. I will fund the whole process, but the name will be used, which is equivalent to advertising for Xinda for free. I don't think they will refuse. Yanghua smiled and said, just treat it as an experiment. If it works out well in the future, we'll discuss it again. Chen Zongdai nodded slightly, then shook his head and said, this activity, this is the only time. Don't do this in class again. It is a good thing to stimulate the students' motivation to learn, but learning for the sake of money will only insult learning and the campus. Chen Zongdai blinked and said slyly, on the contrary, your idea is very good. If Xinda Translation can cooperate with some clubs like the Student Union to provide students with after-school activities that can stimulate their enthusiasm for learning, The college will raise both hands in support. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Poplar Fruit suddenly understood. It was not suitable for the government to do something that involved money, but if it was planned with the student union, then it was a different matter. At the same time, Poplar Fruit also saw that the dean was protecting him. First, he wanted to separate himself from this matter, so that he would not become a target of public criticism for being unconventional. Second, he did not want him to pay out of his own pocket for no reason and benefit Xindao translation. He also wanted to involve the outside world, so that the students could have the opportunity to train and grow. In this regard, Poplar Fruit silently gave the dean, Chen Zongdai, a thumbs up. The old man and the young man smiled meaningfully. Later, Poplar Fruit did indeed follow the dean's suggestion, and told Yao Dehua about this matter. This time, Poplar Fruit still paid out of his own pocket for the French class competition. Yao Dehua found a team in the company to be in charge of this project. As for the results of the experiment, whether this plan would continue or not, that was a matter for another day. There will be 10 chapters today. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 352. Sixth update. After leaving the school building, Poplar Fruit did not plan to go straight back to find Fang Beibei. Instead, he took advantage of the fact that Kiki was being taken care of by Fang Beibei to find a place where he could confess to Fang Beibei in the future. Driving the Land Rover, Poplar Fruit wandered around the streets near the school. Whenever he came across a decent-sized restaurant, he would turn into it to ask and check. The restaurant that Poplar Fruit wanted to find had to have a large private room. If it was a room that could only fit a table, Poplar Fruit would not even have a place to stand. How could he confess? Secondly, the room had to have a display that could play videos. Many high-class hotels had televisions in their rooms. There were hanging ones, standing ones, old ones, and many other types. However, Yanghua found a few rooms that could only be used to watch TV. There was no way to connect to external storage devices to play videos. Some restaurants could hold weddings in the hall, but Poplar Fruit did not want to confess in the hall. Because the hall was too ostentatious and looked very extravagant, Fang Beibei would definitely not like it. Another requirement was that the restaurant had to have food that could satisfy Poplar Fruit. This was an extravagant request of a foodie like Poplar Fruit. However, since the first two requirements could not be met, Poplar Fruit did not have the opportunity to consider the third requirement. The previous one was not bad. I could play videos, but the owner was too unreasonable. He refused to cooperate. Are you afraid that I will tear down your restaurant or what? Poplar Fruit drove the car, and muttered to himself as he drove to the next destination. The next restaurant was a little further away. It would take about 10 minutes to drive around. However, it was close to the river and had an antique atmosphere. It was quite beautiful. The name was also not bad. It was called Immortal Village Fish House. Poplar Fruit stopped the car, and stood in the parking lot in front of the restaurant. He shook his head as he read the words on the signboard. Only then did he walk in leisurely. The moment he entered the hall, Poplar Fruit was greeted by a smiling receptionist. Recently, Poplar Fruit's temperament had become more and more elegant. Although he was still not very particular about the clothes he wore, he began to buy better clothes without paying too much attention to the price. He no longer bought those street stalls, so he looked like an elegant young master. Especially when he had just gotten off the Land Rover. Any greeter who had a good eye would not let go of such a rich guest. How many of you are there, sir? The hostess, who was wearing a cheongsam and high heels, asked with a smile. Oh, I'm not going to eat here. I just want to take a look at the rooms here. Poplar Fruit smiled. His deep, starry eyes made the receptionist a little dazed. If your private room is suitable, I would like to reserve it. I will need it in a few days. The hostess blushed a little because of her performance just now, but fortunately, the light blush covered her expression. She recovered her professional smile and asked, Sir, what kind of room do you need? Poplar Fruit did not answer her. He was stunned. Just now, he lowered his head to talk to the hostess. When he raised his head to look at the restaurant, he inadvertently saw a familiar figure. Although when Poplar Fruit raised his head, she had just gone upstairs and disappeared around the corner of the stairs. But with that figure and long hair, Poplar Fruit was very sure that it was Duan Xueqing. What is she doing here? Poplar Fruit muttered in his heart. It's still working hours. Poplar Fruit noticed that walking together with Duan Xueqing was a medium-sized fat man and a middle-aged man in a suit with shiny hair. Sir? Sir? The hostess noticed that Poplar Fruit was distracted while talking to her, so she helplessly reminded him. Oh. Poplar Fruit came back to his senses and asked, "What kind of rooms do you have?" Poplar Fruit found his own reason. He remembered that Duan Xueqing was busy with work during this period of time and thought, she should be out to meet a client, right? Eating a meal is very normal for these government workers. We have small rooms, medium rooms, big rooms, and couple suites. The hostess replied with a smile. How big is the medium room? How big is the big room? Poplar Fruit directly skipped the small room and couple suites. The minimum cost for a medium room is 788, suitable for 5 to 12 people. For the big room, there are 2 tables, which is twice as much as a medium room. The minimum cost is 1,688. The hostess smiled. From the conversation with Poplar Fruit, this was indeed a rich guest. The medium room was probably a bit small, if it could only fit 1 table. Poplar Fruit said, "How about this, take me to see the big room. Or if you are busy, tell me where it is, and I will go see the big room myself." After going to so many restaurants, Poplar Fruit realized that seeing was believing. Not busy, it is our duty to serve you. The hostess smiled sweetly. She asked her companion to help look after the entrance, then took Poplar Fruit to the 2nd floor. Following behind the hostess who was swaying her hips, Poplar Fruit purposely glanced at the corridor and didn't see any sign of Duan Xueqing. She probably went into a private room, so he didn't disturb her. The hostess opened the door of a private room with a spring sunshine sign hanging on the door, smiled and said, "Sir, this is our big room." "Let me see." Poplar Fruit walked past the hostess and entered the big room. To Poplar Fruit's disappointment, the 2 tables were placed together, and there wasn't much space left. "If I only need 1 table, can you move 1 table away?" Poplar Fruit turned around and asked, "The minimum cost is still according to your standards, this is not a problem." "Sure." The hostess smiled. This wasn't a big deal. If there were less people coming to eat, but they paid the same amount of money, the restaurant would be happier. That was still acceptable. 1 less table was more than enough space for him. "Can this TV be used?" Poplar Fruit touched the display hanging in the middle of the wall and asked. "Yes." The hostess quickly went up and turned on the TV. "What I mean is, can I look at my own videos?" Poplar Fruit explained. Ah. The hostess was dumbfounded by Poplar Fruit's question. She didn't understand such a technical question. "I have to ask," the hostess said embarrassedly. Poplar Fruit followed her out of the room. She wanted to go downstairs and ask the manager or other relevant personnel. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "It's okay, you go and ask. I'll wait for your reply." Poplar Fruit stood in the corridor on the 2nd floor and paced back and forth. He felt a little anxious to go to the toilet. There was a toilet in the private room. But now that the hostess wasn't there, Poplar Fruit was embarrassed to open the door and use it himself. It wouldn't be good if it caused a misunderstanding. The toilet on this floor wasn't far. Poplar Fruit found it after 2 steps. He pushed open the door of the men's toilet and walked in. There will be 10 chapters today. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 353. 7th update. This restaurant's toilet decoration is not bad. The tiled floor and marble sink are shiny. The sanitary conditions are also good. However, there are not enough standing places to pee. When Poplar Fruit went in, there were 2 people standing there. Poplar Fruit glanced at them, and without waiting he walked into a squatting hole inside. Because it's just pee, Poplar Fruit did not close the door, but only slightly closed it. After Poplar Fruit left the school, he did not go to the toilet for more than 2 hours. This time, he held it in for a long time. After peeing, Poplar Fruit comfortably shook and gently breathed a sigh of relief. Then he zipped up his pants and prepared to flush. The two people from before have already gone out, only to hear the toilet door clanging, followed by two sets of footsteps. Two more people came in. Poplar Fruit's hand that was about to reach the flush valve has not yet pressed it, but he retracted his hand, because the words of the two people who just came in attracted Poplar Fruit's attention. Hee hee, I say, Director Gu, you're really good at doing things. You even managed to get such a beautiful female subordinate for you. A slightly flattering voice was complimenting. Hey, what's this? Old Wang, you know, when I was in the town, that little girl, didn't she come to me with a wave of my hand? The man called Director Gu proudly smiled and said, now this is a bit troublesome, but the harder it is to get, the more delicious it is. Poplar Fruit was disgusted by their vulgar conversation. He guessed that the two people outside are not good people, so he did not want to go out and bump into them. He waited for them to leave before going out. Director Gu, that beauty. You've tried so many times but failed. Isn't she the world's top delicacy? The man called Old Wang laughed. But in the end you have a way. If it were me, seeing this thorny rose, I wouldn't want to lay my hands on her. The more Poplar Fruit listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. He frowned and quietly turned on the recording function of his phone. What do you know? Director Gu said disdainfully. The colder and more reserved this kind of woman is, the more annoying she is. Once he gets his hands on her, he'll be dead set on her. Didn't you not pick up my calls and avoid me everywhere? Director Gu said proudly. Look, I just casually gave an executive order, and she will obediently come out with me. Of course. Your methods are brilliant. I admire you from the bottom of my heart. Old Wang said respectfully. Did you bring everything? It wasn't easy to trick her into coming out. Don't tell me you've forgotten? Director Gu asked after the sound of water being released. How could I? I can forget anything but you. Lao Wang laughed. Here, your ecstasy powder. I've already used up the last one. I asked my friend to bring this one back from Sioux country. I've tried it. It's still the same formula and the same effect. The name ecstasy powder is too vulgar. Director Gu said with some infatuation. I think it should be called charming little yellow pill. Mix it with wine, and even the gods will be mesmerized by you. Yes, you're really too talented. This name is too good. Old Wang's compliment gave Poplar Fruit goosebumps. The sound of turning on the faucet and washing their hands could be heard. The two of them walked out of the bathroom as they did so. Don't talk nonsense. Quickly book a room and bring it over. Set up a camera there. After tonight, let's see if she still dares to be stubborn. Director Gu said with a smile. Oh, it seems like Director Gu is going to get another obedient slave. I, Old Wang, congratulate you in advance for your success. Haha, just watch. Watch how I subdue that bitch surnamed Duan. Director Gu's voice drifted in when the door of the toilet was pushed open and closed. Duan. Poplar Fruit's eyes suddenly widened. After listening to their conversation, Poplar Fruit felt that something was wrong. Now, with this information, Poplar Fruit was sure that the woman these two dirty men were plotting against was Duan Xueqing. Originally, Poplar Fruit recorded the conversation to call the police. Then, through the police's channels, he would be able to catch the two men and catch them red-handed. But now he couldn't. The person they were trying to seduce was Duan Xueqing. Poplar Fruit wouldn't let this happen. He wouldn't let these two despicable people taint Duan Xueqing's innocence. Even if it was just an attempt, he wouldn't allow it. Poplar Fruit hurriedly put away his phone, pushed open the cubicle door and chased after them. Just as he pushed open the door of the toilet, the receptionist walked in from the corridor. Behind her was an electrician carrying an old green satchel. When she saw Poplar Fruit, she said in surprise, Sir, so you're here. I was wondering why I couldn't find you anywhere. Poplar Fruit turned his head to look at the corridor on both sides, but he realized that the two men were long gone. This is our engineer Lee. I just asked him, and he said that your request isn't difficult to fulfill. He brought an adapter, and he can help us see if we can use the TV to broadcast your video. The receptionist said happily. However, Poplar Fruit wasn't in the mood to listen to her. He urgently needed to find Duan Xueqing and save her from this dangerous situation. Poplar Fruit walked up and grabbed the receptionist's shoulders. He anxiously asked, "Did you see the two men who just left? Which room were they in?" The receptionist was shaken by him. She was a little confused and didn't answer for a while. "Forget it, I'll find them myself." Poplar Fruit anxiously let go of the receptionist, pushed the electrician away, and went to the left. "They can't be that fast. They must be nearby." Although Poplar Fruit was very anxious, he still analyzed clearly. He pushed open the door of the first room on the left. It was empty. In the second room, there were a few men eating. Poplar Fruit suddenly pushed open the door. They were shocked and looked at Poplar Fruit in unison. Poplar Fruit didn't have time to apologize. He slammed the door and went to the third room. Sir, you can't do this. You'll cause trouble for our other guests." The receptionist woke up at this time. She quickly lifted the hem of her cheongsam and chased after him with small steps. "I have something urgent." Poplar Fruit didn't have time to explain. He quickly pushed open the door of the third room. That's not it. There was a family in this room. There was no sign of Duan Xueqing. I'm sorry. The receptionist apologized for Poplar Fruit and chased after Poplar Fruit to stop him. After opening 7 rooms, Poplar Fruit still couldn't find Duan Xueqing. He turned his head and looked in the other direction. She must be in that room. At this time, the electrician opened his hand and blocked Poplar Fruit's way. He said seriously, "Sir, please don't make trouble. You've already affected our business. If you make trouble again, we'll call the police." Chapter 354. 8th update. Get out of the way. Poplar Fruit brushed past the greeter like the wind. Even the electrician was pushed away by him angrily. Poplar Fruit was so strong that the electrician, who was not strong, staggered and almost fell to the ground. In the private room on the right side of the corridor, Poplar Fruit pushed open 2 doors, but he did not see Duan Xueqing. Worried that Duan Xueqing had drunk the drugged wine, he became more and more anxious. When he came to the third door, Poplar Fruit had lost his mind. He twisted the door handle and kicked it open. Let's stop at Poplar Fruit's point of view for a moment. Let's return to Duan Xueqing's private room a few minutes ago. Duan Xueqing was helpless. Since the beginning of the year, after the female leader who had doted on her was transferred, the new director Gu had been eyeing her at first sight. Director Gu's name was Gu Shida. It was said that his family had some background. Duan Xueqing did not know what kind of background he had, and she was not interested in knowing. However, this average-looking, fat guy was very arrogant and domineering in Duan Xueqing's unit. Duan Xueqing was too lazy to pay attention to him. At most, she would avoid him. However, he was also very lecherous. All day long, his eyes were lecherously looking at the female colleagues in the unit who had a slightly better figure. Duan Xueqing, who was young and beautiful like a fairy, became his primary target. From time to time, he would run to Duan Xueqing's desk to guide her work. After work, he would not forget to ask Duan Xueqing out to eat, drink, and have fun. After picking up the phone twice, Duan Xueqing hung up every time she saw his number and ignored it. Seeing Gu Shida's fat pig head and Mediterranean hairstyle, Duan Xueqing wanted to vomit. However, after all, he was her immediate superior. Duan Xueqing swallowed his anger and buried herself in work. Today, Duan Xueqing was really tricked by Gu Shida. He said in the office that he was going to inspect a company in his district today. He asked Duan Xueqing to go with him. Such field trips were not uncommon. Other people had been there before. Duan Xueqing just had to follow him out. In the end, after half an hour of inspection, he came out with the owner of the building materials company, Wang Changyuan, to have lunch. Duan Xueqing had no choice but to follow them to the restaurant. As soon as they ordered, the two of them went to the bathroom. The dishes were not served yet, but 2 bottles of red wine were served. As soon as Wang Changyuan came back, he opened a bottle of red wine and said with a smile, "Come, let's drink some red wine first." After that, he poured 3 glasses. "You don't have to pour for me." Duan Xueqing quickly waved her hand and said, "I don't drink." "You came out with your boss. Are you not giving me face?" Wang Changyuan deliberately pretended to be very unhappy. Wuxia, who was a little impatient, took a glass of red wine from the glass turntable. Under the cover of his sleeve, a small yellow pill slipped through his fingers into the wine glass. With a gentle shake, most of it dissolved. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it at all. Drink a little. You see, Boss Wang is angry. Wuxia pushed the red wine in front of Duan Xueqing and said hypocritically, "Sorry, I don't drink." Duan Xueqing shook her head and said firmly, "Why are you so stubborn?" Wuxia said unhappily, "I'm not asking you to drink as much as you want. It's work time. Do you want to get drunk? Drink a little. Just treat it as an appetizer before the meal. Everyone will be happy." You see, Xiao Duan, you don't know how to behave. Wang Changyuan shook the red wine in his glass slightly, took a sip, and said, "We drink red wine because it's good for our health, especially for female comrades. Drinking red wine can make you look beautiful. If we really want to drink, why would we ask a female comrade to drink with us? Why would we drink this soft red wine? How can you do a good job like this? You see, Boss Wang has criticized you. Why don't you drink a glass to apologize?" Wuxia said hypocritically. Bang! There was a loud noise. Wang Changyuan was so scared that the goblet in his hand shook, and some red wine spilled on his hand. Poplar Fruit kicked open the door of the private room. Without looking around, he saw Duan Xueqing sitting there looking at him in surprise. Looking around, the situation in the private room was clear at a glance. Poplar Fruit saw the two men walking with Duan Xueqing. They were the fat man and the waxy man. The situation at the table was also very clear. The fat man was persuading Duan Xueqing to drink. "Who are you? Why did you kick our door?" The waxy man put down the goblet in his hand. He didn't have time to wipe the red wine off his hand before he stood up and asked angrily, "That's the voice." Poplar Fruit knew that the voice belonged to Lao Wang, who was helping the evildoer in the toilet. Then the fat man sitting in the main seat was the so-called Director Gu. Poplar Fruit lowered his eyes and looked at the red wine that the fat man had stretched out in front of Duan Xueqing. He thought of the two men's conspiracy in the toilet, and his eyes widened. If he guessed correctly, this glass of red wine must have been drugged. Fortunately, he made it in time. Duan Xueqing hadn't drunk it yet. Although she hadn't drunk it yet, Poplar Fruit's chest was burning with anger. On the one hand, his anger was related to Duan Xueqing. These two people wanted to make a move on Duan Xueqing and use such despicable means. How could Poplar Fruit not be angry? On the other hand, this drugging incident reminded him of Wuyu. Wasn't Wuyu also drugged by the young master in her company? Otherwise, how could there be a misunderstanding with him that night? "Who are you?" Wuxia stood up and pointed at Poplar Fruit. "Is this hotel going to continue? Can any random person barge in?" "Director, he is." Duan Xueqing was worried that Wuxia would vent his anger on Poplar Fruit, so she quickly stood up and explained. Poplar Fruit interrupted Duan Xueqing's words. He stared coldly at Wuxia and said, "Director Gu, right? I'm Xueqing's brother." "Xueqing, let's go." Poplar Fruit walked over and pulled Duan Xueqing out of the room. Duan Xueqing was still a little confused by his sudden move, but Poplar Fruit grabbed her hand. She couldn't help but push away her chair and get ready to leave. "Stop." After waiting for a few months, Wuxia saw that the duck in his mouth was about to fly away. How could he not be anxious? He roared. At this time, Wang Changyuan also stood in front of Poplar Fruit, not letting them leave. "I don't care who you are. If you don't make things clear today, no one will leave." Wuxia slammed the table. He was fat, and his palms were very fat. When he slammed the table hard, the cups, spoons, and chopsticks all jumped up and made a crisp collision sound. "And you, Xiao Duan?" Wuxia pointed at Duan Xueqing and said, "Do you still want to work? Your work attitude not only makes Boss Wang very disappointed, but also makes me very, very disappointed. There are 2 more chapters today. I beg for monthly votes. I beg for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to smash the poor. Greater than over equal to." Chapter 355. 9th update. I quit. Duan Xueqing was held by Poplar Fruit. She suddenly turned her head and looked coldly at Gushida, who was threatening her with words. What did you say? Gushida's fat head suddenly froze. His finger pointing at Duan Xueqing was still there. She said that she quit. With a leader like you, our family's Xueqing won't serve you anymore. Poplar Fruit shielded Duan Xueqing behind him and said word by word. Did you hear that clearly? You're treating work as a game. Gushida was angry. His fingers trembled as he said angrily. It's better than you using work as an excuse to trick your female subordinates into bed, right? Poplar Fruit said disdainfully. Gushida was shocked, ashamed, and angry. He blurted out. You're slandering me. I'm slandering you? Poplar Fruit sneered and said. If I hadn't come early, Xueqing would have been drugged by you. He patted Duan Xueqing's hand, which was grabbing his arm nervously, and said, Fortunately, Xueqing didn't drink that glass of wine. I think you've already drugged her, right? Duan Xueqing's eyes suddenly widened. She turned to look at the glass of red wine, and recalled how Gushida and the others had tried to trick her into drinking. She began to feel a little scared. What drug? Don't talk nonsense. Gushida pointed at Poplar Fruit and said in surprise. I'm talking nonsense? Poplar Fruit took out his mobile phone from his trouser pocket, turned on the audio he had just recorded, and turned the volume to the maximum. What do you know? The colder and more reserved this kind of woman is, the more annoying she is. When I get her, she'll be dead set. Gushida found that his voice came from Poplar Fruit's mobile phone. The iPhone's recording quality was very good, and every word could be heard clearly. Duan Xueqing's cold face still didn't change, but her eyes seemed to spit out flames of anger as she stared at Gushida. Gushida's face turned red, but he couldn't find a reason to hide it because the two voices in the conversation were his and Wang Changyuan's. Poplar Fruit suddenly felt a gust of wind behind him. He quickly pushed Duan Xueqing to the side and let Wang Changyuan, who was rushing from behind to snatch Poplar Fruit's mobile phone. Give me your mobile phone. Otherwise, both of you won't be able to walk out of this door. Wang Changyuan rolled up his sleeves and said fiercely to Poplar Fruit. Gushida also knew that if he let Poplar Fruit leave with this recording, and let Poplar Fruit post it on the internet, with the power of the angry people on the internet, he would probably lose his reputation. Therefore, he didn't care about his image and came forward. He and Wang Changyuan formed a circle around Poplar Fruit and Duan Xueqing. Because Poplar Fruit had just avoided them, he and Duan Xueqing happened to be in the corner of the private room. Behind them was the wall, and there were two people in front of them. No matter how he looked at it, they couldn't escape. Gushida smiled treacherously and proudly. He picked up a chair from the table. Although it was dragged on the ground, he could swing it up at any time with his thigh-thick arms. I said, why didn't you just do as I said? Why did you make it so awkward for everyone? Gushida's words were directed at Duan Xueqing. He looked smug as if he had already gained the upper hand. Duan Xueqing's pretty face was pale. She pulled Poplar Fruit's arm, not knowing what to do. Since she was a child, she had been the apple of her family's eye. Not to mention fighting with others, she rarely even blushed. In such a situation, her mind went blank, and her usually calm expression became flustered. This flustered expression hit Gushida's G-spot. He liked to see women's expressions of fear, helplessness, and begging for mercy when they were forced by him. His face showed a perverted excitement. However, Poplar Fruit didn't look flustered at all. Looking at the two people who were gradually approaching, Poplar Fruit felt a little disdainful. Although there were two of them, and one of them had a weapon in his hand, Poplar Fruit could see that the two guys' footsteps were light. Their bodies were fat, and their limbs were weak. They must have not exercised for years, and their bodies had been hollowed out by alcohol and women. Poplar Fruit was confident that he could take down 2 or 3 well-trained soldiers, excluding the special forces of course, let alone these two ordinary people who had no strength at all. Now that his Taiji fist and Xingyi fist had reached great success, and his body movements were becoming more and more skilled, these two guys were not enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Looking back, Poplar Fruit smiled faintly at Duan Xueqing. He patted Duan Xueqing's trembling hands to comfort her. Then he pushed Duan Xueqing inside, and turned to face the two men. Wang Changyuan felt that now was the best time to show his loyalty. He screamed and pounced on Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit's primary target was Wang Changyuan. Wang Changyuan screamed fiercely, but he was not Poplar Fruit's match at all. Poplar Fruit just reached out and twisted his arms, spun him around, and then kicked his knees. Wang Changyuan couldn't help but fall to his knees. His two knees hit the floor with a bang, and he screamed in pain as he lay on the ground. Ah! Duan Xueqing screamed. She saw Gu Shida take advantage of Poplar Fruit's back, then swing the chair and smash it on Poplar Fruit's back. This guy was too treacherous, and the timing of his attack was very good. Poplar Fruit had just made Wang Changyuan kneel, and ordinary people really couldn't avoid his sneak attack. But Poplar Fruit was not an ordinary person. Without Duan Xueqing's reminder, Poplar Fruit noticed the movement behind him, and a sneer appeared on his face. Gu Shida didn't know how he moved, but Poplar Fruit suddenly dodged, revealing Wang Changyuan, who had fallen to the ground. At this time, it was too late for Gu Shida to stop. With the powerful inertia of the chair, it was impossible for him to stop it with his ability. Although Gu Shida had managed to slow down the chair a little, he could not control it at all. One of the chair's legs hit Wang Changyuan's raised buttocks. Ah! Wang Changyuan screamed again, covering his buttocks and rolling on the ground. Gu Shida was dumbfounded. He stood there in a daze, holding the chair. "Let's go." Poplar Fruit turned back and took Duan Xueqing's hand. He smiled at her, as if what had just happened was insignificant, and led her out of the door. As soon as they walked out of the door, the hostess ran up from the first floor with several men in white security uniforms, panting. As soon as she turned the stairs, she saw Poplar Fruit. She pointed at Poplar Fruit and shouted, "It's him!" At this time, Gu Shida also rushed out. He saw the hotel's security guards appear and shouted excitedly, "Catch him!" There's one more update today. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Everyone, take your votes and throw them at the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 356. 10th update. There will be no more updates in the morning. See you tomorrow at 7. Good night, everyone. As soon as they ran out, Poplar Fruit and Duan Xueqing met 4 hotel security guards. Under the lead of the hostess, they wanted to stop Poplar Fruit, who was disturbing their business. Gu Shida also ran out. When he saw the hotel security guards, it was as if he had seen his savior. He shouted excitedly, "Quick, catch him!" Obviously, Gu Shida was a regular customer of this restaurant. The owner of the restaurant knew that Gu Shida was not to be trifled with, so he privately instructed his men to be careful. The hostess realized that the handsome man who had suddenly gone crazy had actually provoked a big customer of their store. How could this be? No matter how handsome he was, money and power were not as useful at this time. The hostess was a little flustered. She was worried that Gu Shida would vent his anger on her. In order to make up for her mistake, she gritted her teeth and commanded, "Did you hear that? Help Mr. Gu catch him." The 4 security guards, who were quite tall, heard the command and rushed toward Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit pushed Duan Xueqing back and met them without fear. Don't think that the security guards are as powerful as they are described in novels. It's just a small restaurant. It's impossible to hire retired special forces as security guards. Among the 4 security guards, only one was a retired soldier. The others were all ordinary people. Even the retired soldiers had only learned a few military boxing moves in the army. When it came to fighting, they had forgotten all about it. They were no different from ordinary people. They rushed toward Poplar Fruit, trying to bully him with their numbers. They wanted to twist Poplar Fruit's arms from both sides. There were also some who came head-on to Poplar Fruit. The corridor was not spacious, and there was one person behind them. In the face of the siege, Poplar Fruit was not afraid at all. He met them head-on, but at the last moment of contact, he suddenly squatted down, put his left hand on the ground, and swung his right leg up. He swept his leg against the ground. She used the 8 steps meteor kicks rolling waves kick technique. Although she wasn't very familiar with it, she relied on her strength to create miracles. Yanggua knocked down the 3 people running in front of her with one kick. The 4th security guard stopped in time, and did not step on his companion. Poplar Fruit jumped over, and appeared in front of him at lightning speed. The fourth security guard was shocked. He quickly covered his face and stepped back. Poplar Fruit grabbed one of his arms and pulled hard. Like a spring, the fourth security guard was pulled forward by Poplar Fruit. He staggered and fell on two of his companions. One of the security guards who fell was not hit. He struggled to get up, but Poplar Fruit turned around and kicked him in the butt. As a result, the four of them were stacked together like a human pyramid. They were not injured, but the heavy weight made them groan in pain. Everyone was dumbfounded. No one expected Poplar Fruit to be so fierce. For big men, even if they were not good, it was still 4 against 1. How could they be defeated by Poplar Fruit in less than half a minute? Poplar Fruit clapped his hands gently. He was not surprised by such a record, and did not feel that there was anything to boast about. He now wanted to take Duan Xueqing and leave this place first. Ah! Duan Xueqing suddenly screamed. Hearing the sound, Poplar Fruit looked up and found that Gushida had run behind Duan Xueqing and clasped his fat arm around Duan Xueqing's neck. It was as if he had kidnapped a hostage. Gushida smiled proudly. He knew that with Duan Xueqing in his hands, Poplar Fruit would be cautious. In this way, Poplar Fruit would not be able to do anything to him. Don't come over. Your sister is in my hands. If you come over, I will kill her. Gushida chuckled. He bared his teeth and made a fierce expression. Coupled with his flattened face, he looked even uglier. Poplar Fruit heard this and slowed down his footsteps. However, he still walked forward slowly and did not show any emotion. Hee. You are very good, but what's the use of being good at fighting? This chick is now in my hands. In the end, won't she be controlled by a smart person like me? Gushida said proudly. You wait for me. When we get back to the police station, I will slowly deal with you. Poplar Fruit continued to move forward. Gushida suddenly buried his pig head in Duan Xueqing's long hair, sniffed it hard and sighed. Tsk tisk, it's so fragrant. I have been thinking about you for months. You. Poplar Fruit glared and shouted angrily. At this time, Duan Xueqing also twisted violently. Don't worry, don't worry. Gushida laughed and said, let me finish. As long as you obediently obey me tonight, I, Gushida, promise that I will let bygones be bygones. Gushida pretended to be generous and waved his hand. I will let your brother go. After that, he also wanted to touch Duan Xueqing's face with his fat palm. He had been looking forward to this moment for a long time. He wanted to wreak havoc on Duan Xueqing's indifferent, but beautiful face. Gushida's eyes showed a trace of intoxication. Seeing that this disgusting guy was about to touch her, Duan Xueqing wriggled with a crying voice. She wanted to turn her head away and not let Gushida touch her, but her neck was clasped by Gushida's arm. How could she move? Seeing that Duan Xueqing was about to be touched, Poplar Fruit, who was approaching, also moved. Poplar Fruit suddenly jumped up and instantly jumped in front of Gushida. Gushida was shocked by Poplar Fruit. Before he could move, his rapidly enlarged pupils reflected Poplar Fruit's growing fist. That's right. Poplar Fruit rushed in front of Gushida and Duan Xueqing, raised his fist, and threw a half-step blast punch. The punch landed squarely on Gushida's nose and eye. Poplar Fruit did not use a lot of strength, but for ordinary people, 10% or 20% of Poplar Fruit's strength was already the same as that of an ordinary adult. With this punch, Gushida made a sound. His eyelids rolled, and he let go of Duan Xueqing's arm. His whole body fell back. It was really a one-punch KO. If there was a commentator for the boxing championship on the scene, he might have already been unable to hold back and cheered. Poplar Fruit ignored the guy who had fainted after being beaten by him. He pulled Duan Xueqing, who was still in shock and disgust, and comforted her. It's okay. Don't worry. Let's go. After that, he pulled Duan Xueqing and bypassed the 4 security guards who had not yet struggled out of the human pyramid. Passing by the greeter who was hiding in fear, Poplar Fruit did not even look at her. He went downstairs with Duan Xueqing. Outside the restaurant, Poplar Fruit took Duan Xueqing straight to his Land Rover, got in the car, and drove away. Tomorrow will still break out. There will be 6 updates. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to smash the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 357. First update. After the car started for a while, Duan Xueqing finally calmed down. She turned her head and looked at Poplar Fruit as she said, "Thank you." "Haha." Poplar Fruit laughed dryly and said, "What are you thanking me for? You are my sister. It's natural for me to help you." Poplar Fruit now understood that he couldn't continue to be confused about Duan Xueqing's affairs. He had to make it clear. If he continued to be ambiguous, it would be unfair to Duan Xueqing. It would also be unfair to Fang Beibei, whom he was about to confess to. After Duan Xueqing heard Poplar Fruit's words, she was silent for a while, then asked, "How did you know that I?" Although Duan Xueqing had always been a woman of few words, Poplar Fruit knew the meaning of her question. He smiled and said, "I came here today to look for a restaurant. I looked at several. When I came to this one, I saw you going upstairs. I thought you needed to do it for work. I didn't expect that I would accidentally overhear your conversation with Director Gu in the bathroom. So I quickly came to pull you out." Yang Gua continued to speak while driving. "I don't know," Duan Xueqing said sadly. She didn't expect Gu Shida to be so pretentious. "By the way, who is he? What's his background?" Poplar Fruit asked. Today's matter would never end like this. With Gu Shida's character, even if Duan Xueqing resigned, he wouldn't let it go so easily. Therefore, Poplar Fruit had to ask clearly before he could find a way to deal with this trouble. "His name is Gu Shida, a director of the subdistrict office." Duan Xueqing thought for a while and replied, "I don't know what his background is. It seems that he has relatives in the district. I don't know." It shouldn't be as simple as what Duan Xueqing said. Poplar Fruit frowned slightly. He recalled Gu Shida's arrogant and domineering attitude. According to his previous conversation with Wang Changyuan, Gu Shida had committed a lot of crimes in the past. If he could still jump around safely, there must be someone above him. After driving Duan Xueqing to her community, Poplar Fruit said to Duan Xueqing, "Don't worry. I'll take care of this. Go back and sleep. When you wake up, forget everything. Everything will be fine." Duan Xueqing smiled at him and softly said, "Yes, I'm not afraid. But I'm going to lose my job." Duan Xueqing covered her mouth and laughed. She was usually expressionless, but this time, she revealed a mischievous look. She said, "Brother, you have to take care of your sister in the future." Was she being kept? Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, "Don't think that losing your job is a big deal. Isn't it just a civil servant? With your English level, you can be a translator in Xinda translation. Your income will definitely be higher than your job." The reason why Poplar Fruit didn't talk to Duan Xueqing about interpreting was that Duan Xueqing was not suited to be an interpreter. She was most suitable to be a translator at home quietly. "Okay." Duan Xueqing nodded obediently. Woo-woo. Suddenly, there was a rush of sirens in the community, as if they were chasing after a fugitive. The sound of several police cars rushing could be heard from afar. Poplar Fruit's ears were more sensitive. He suddenly realized that the sound was getting closer and closer, as if it was coming for him. "Quick! Take my phone and get out of the car. Stay away." Poplar Fruit took out his phone and handed it to Duan Xueqing. He hurriedly said, "If anything happens, quickly ask Mosquito for help." "No." Poplar Fruit suddenly remembered that Song Jiwen's father might not be able to deal with the relative behind Gu Shida. He quickly told Duan Xueqing, "If Mosquito can't handle it, find Big Brother his phone and ask him to get me out." "I'm not going." Duan Xueqing was a little scared, but she didn't want to leave Poplar Fruit behind. "Are you stupid?" Poplar Fruit pushed her and said, "I'm the main target. They must catch me first. If you escape, then they can find someone to get me out. Go." Duan Xueqing had just walked into the corridor when the police cars arrived and quickly surrounded Poplar Fruit's Land Rover. In order to buy time for Duan Xueqing, Poplar Fruit got out of his car with a smile and raised his hands. "Run. You run." Gu Shida's nostrils were stuffed with 2 balls of paper. He got out of a police car proudly and said in a muffled voice, If you run to the ends of the earth, won't you still be caught by me? At that time in the restaurant, Gushita fainted and woke up. At that time, the police that the hostess had called before rushed over. Gushita looked at them and saw that they were acquaintances. They were the area policemen who often drank with them. Damn, Brother Gu, how did you become like this? The leading policeman rushed over to help him. Gushita was only a director, but his uncle was the leader of the area. He had great power, so of course, they had to curry favor with Gushita. Gushita wiped the blood dripping from his nose. He didn't care about stopping the bleeding and shouted, "Fuck, I was hit by a stick today. Otherwise, who would dare to touch me?" He was still stubborn. Who dares to hit Brother Gu? I'll teach him a lesson. The leading policeman shouted. Xiaohu, you came at the right time. Let's go after him and catch that kid for me. Gushita held his shoulder and said, Tonight, I'll let him know what it means to live a life worse than death. Leave this to me. Brother Gu, you're still bleeding. Let's go to the hospital to have a look. Xiaohu struggled to support him and smiled flatteringly. No. Today I must watch you catch him. Gushita said, covering his nose. Mr. Gu, the person who hit you drove away in a Land Rover. The license plate number is Guangdong XXXX. The hotel manager who rushed over came over and said flatteringly. Xiaohu waved his hand and ordered, Go after him. Gushita and the others left Wang Changyuan behind and chased in the direction where Poplar Fruit had left. There were surveillance cameras everywhere on the road. Poplar Fruit's car was so obvious. Xiaohu just asked the command center through the pager and dug out the route that Poplar Fruit had left. He honked all the way and chased after him unimpeded. Because of this, they caught up with Poplar Fruit not long after he went downstairs. Facing 3 police cars and 6 uniformed policemen surrounding him, Poplar Fruit smiled calmly and said, Your nose is quite sharp, isn't it? It seems that my punch was too light. Gushita was so angry at Poplar Fruit that his nose was crooked. However, it might have already been crooked. He shouted, You're still so stubborn when you're about to die. Let's catch him and see if he can still laugh. However, he still warned Xiaohu, Be careful, this kid knows kung fu. Looking at the 6 policemen, who looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy, Poplar Fruit's expression was as usual. He smiled calmly, stretched out his hands and said, Catch him. There will be 6 updates today. Please vote and recommend. Everyone, take your votes and throw them at the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 358. Second update. 2 stronger policemen suddenly rushed up from the side and twisted Poplar Fruit's hands behind his back. Poplar Fruit frowned. The 2 policemen's actions were too rough. He had already been arrested, but they still wanted to twist his hands. If it had been an ordinary person, his arms might have been dislocated. Poplar Fruit gently moved the muscles and bones of his arms and wrists to make himself more comfortable. These small movements were not noticed by them. Seeing that Poplar Fruit had been caught, Gushita breathed a sigh of relief. The police officer named Xiaohu, who had deliberately flattered him, took out handcuffs from behind his waist. With a sinister smile, he went behind Poplar Fruit and clasped his hands. Xiaohu was not as tall as Poplar Fruit's shoulders. He had to poke his head out from behind Poplar Fruit and look at Gushita, waiting for his next instructions. Take him back. Take him back. Gushita waved his hand triumphantly. He and Xiaohu got into the first car, while Poplar Fruit was pushed into the second police car by the 2 stronger policemen. Poplar Fruit followed them obediently, but he was still pushed hard by someone who pressed his head and almost hit the top edge of the car door. Poplar Fruit turned his head and glanced at the policeman who pushed him. The man had a pair of ugly triangular eyes and a high nose. He scolded. What are you looking at? Poplar Fruit turned his head and ignored him. He got into the back seat of the police car, and the man with the triangular eyes sat next to him and slammed the door. The police car came and went, and Poplar Fruit's Land Rover was driven away by a policeman. At this time, Duan Xueqing walked out of her hiding place in the corridor with tears in her eyes. She looked at the police car driving away, and bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth. She turned her head and ran back to her apartment. After closing the door, Duan Xueqing's hands trembled. She first called Song Jiwen according to Poplar Fruit's instructions. What? What happened? Song Jiwen shouted on the phone. Xueqing, don't cry. Tell me clearly. What happened to Lao Gua? He was taken away by the police, Duan Xueqing said, sobbing. What? Song Jiwen slammed the table, stood up, and asked. Fortunately, he already had his own office. Otherwise, he would have become the focus of everyone's attention. Who took him? Why was Lao Gua arrested? Song Jiwen asked in shock and disbelief. Duan Xueqing cut the long story short and said, because of me, sob sob. Song Jiwen couldn't understand the situation on the phone. He asked for Duan Xueqing's location and hung up the phone. He hurriedly told someone and ran out of the office. He called a taxi and rushed back to his apartment. Before Song Jiwen came back, Duan Xueqing took her phone and called her father. In her eyes, her father, who was worth hundreds of millions after decades of hard work, was her sky. He was the sky of the entire family. When she encountered such a big matter, the first thing she thought of was to ask her father for help. However, although Duan Xueqing's father was a little famous in the Jiangnan area, he only had the right to speak in their area. In Yangcheng, far away in Guangdong province, Duan Xueqing's father only had dealings with them during the Guangdong Trade Fair. His network didn't extend here at all. Not only did Duan Xueqing not find help from her family, but she also didn't speak in detail, which worried her mother a lot. This was a story for later. After putting down the phone, Duan Xueqing felt particularly helpless. Her usual indifference and calmness had turned into panicked tears. She could only hope that Song Jiwen would come back and give her good news. Song Jiwen came back. When he encountered a big matter, his ability to deal with it showed. He first asked Duan Xueqing, who spoke intermittently, the ins and outs of the matter. You mean Lao Gua hit Gushida because of you? Song Jiwen asked with a frown. Duan Xueqing nodded and said in a hoarse voice. He recorded the conversation on the phone. Song Jiwen took Poplar Fruit's phone and pressed the home button to light up the screen. At this time, the phone indicated that there was a missed call from Bei Bei. At this time, he didn't have the mood to care about the missed call. He directly swiped open the unlocked interface, found the audio that Duan Xueqing said, and listened to it. So that's what happened. Song Jiwen knew as soon as he heard it. Not to mention Poplar Fruit, if Song Jiwen encountered such a thing, he would definitely not be able to help but beat someone up. However, Poplar Fruit hit Gushida. If it were someone else, Song Jiwen would definitely ask his friends to get Poplar Fruit out. But Gushida was in trouble. Gushida alone was not a big deal, but his uncle, Gu Ziwei, was a deputy mayor. This official position was much more powerful than Song Jiwen's father's. A deputy mayor was equivalent to a deputy county magistrate, not to mention the deputy mayor of a provincial capital city like Yangcheng. Duan Xueqing saw Song Jiwen's frown and asked cautiously, "You can't do anything about it?" "I can't." Song Jiwen sighed. "His uncle is very powerful." "Do you know where Lao Guo was arrested? I'll see if there are any friends who can help talk to him and make him suffer less." Song Jiwen could only think of this way. Duan Xueqing shook her head. "That's troublesome." Song Jiwen pulled his hair. His hair, which had been gelled, became messy. He wondered if he should ask someone about it. Brother Yang said that if you can't do anything you can still look for Big Brother he. Duan Xueqing felt that she had caused a big trouble for Poplar Fruit. She was regretful and guilty, so she said in a low voice, "Big Brother he? What Big Brother he?" Song Jiwen's eyes lit up. He remembered that Poplar Fruit told him last time that he was plotted against in his hometown. In the end, he was still safe. As far as he knew, the person who plotted against Poplar Fruit was the same person who stopped him from dealing with Liang Zhenglin, but Poplar Fruit solved it. It meant that Poplar Fruit knew a very powerful person. This Big Brother he might be the key to solving Poplar Fruit's current predicament. This was a misunderstanding. Song Jiwen confused Zheng Yujie with He Wenjue, but it didn't matter. He now found a new hope. After searching for a while in Poplar Fruit's mobile phone, Song Jiwen found the mobile phone number with Big Brother he written on it and quickly dialed it. "Sorry, the number you dialed is turned off." There was a ruthless prompt from the phone. Song Jiwen felt like he had fallen into an ice cave. His right hand that was holding the phone froze. Wonjua was probably on a mission again, but he was the last straw that Song Jiwen could grasp. How could this be? Song Jiwen put down the phone weakly. Why did he turn off his phone at the crucial moment? Looking at Duan Xueqing's face full of hope, Song Jiwen sighed and shook his head. Chapter 359. Third update. Back at the police station, Gu Shida watched with his own eyes as Yang Guo was locked up in the small dark room of the interrogation room. He smiled contemptuously and chuckled in his heart. Overconfident, unruly citizen. He did not stay at the police station to wait for poplar fruit to be dealt with. He handed over the matters here to the loyal Xiao Hu, and he proudly took the police car to the hospital to have his injuries examined. The examination was just a pretense. He wanted to find an acquaintance to write a serious injury examination report, so that he could punish poplar fruit severely. Gu Shida felt humiliated when he was punched by poplar fruit, so he felt very satisfied that he had caught poplar fruit. For a moment, he forgot about Duan Xueqing, who had escaped, and the important audio on poplar fruit's phone. Duan Xueqing was fine. Even if a nun could escape, she could not escape the temple. Xiao Hu knew he should be called Superintendent Hu Chuanqiang. There was a four-pointed star on his shoulder. After he sent Gu Shida away, he came back with his confidant, Ma Kai, and walked into the small dark room where poplar fruit was staying. This was a good opportunity to build a good relationship with the Gu family. Hu Chuanqiang was just a small district police officer. At best, he was only a small captain with only a few people under him. If he could do things properly this time and satisfy Gu Shida, then Hu Chuanqiang was likely to become Gu Shida's favorite. When Gu Shida and his uncle put in a good word for him, he would be promoted and become rich. That would not be a dream. Poplar fruit was pinned to the iron table. The square iron table was directly welded to the ground, and there was no possibility of it moving. After being locked up, poplar fruit looked around the interrogation room. There was a thick soundproof wall beside him, and there was a camera in the corner of the room. Compared to the dark room when he first arrived, there was now a bright chandelier hanging high above the metal table, giving him a strong sense of oppression. Other than the table, there were only 3 wooden stools on the floor. Poplar fruit sat on one, and there were 2 other stools across from him. Other than that, there was nothing else. There wasn't even a window. The entire room looked spacious yet sealed. Even though it was brightly lit, it still gave off a gloomy feeling. Hu Chuanqiang and Ma Kai walked in with sinister smiles. Poplar fruit saw the second person who walked in. It was the triangular-eyed guy who pushed him. The triangular-eyed man was tall and sturdy, but he had probably spent too much time drinking, so his bulging belly was not small. After closing the door, Hu Chuanqiang was not in a hurry to make a move. He threw the notebook in his hand on the table, and swaggered over to sit across from poplar fruit. The triangular-eyed Ma Kai sat next to him, pulled the notebook over, and prepared to record. Poplar fruit sat still. Even though his hands were pinned to the table, he still sat with his back straight, without a trace of fear. Tell me, Hu Chuanqiang asked lazily. Tell me what? Poplar fruit asked back with a smile that was not a smile. Yo. You're still being stubborn? Hu Chuanqiang asked in a strange tone. Okay, I'll play with you slowly. Name. Hu Chuanqiang dragged his voice and asked. Answer properly. Don't play tricks with me, or you'll suffer later. Poplar fruit did not beat around the bush with these routine questions, and directly answered, poplar fruit. Ma Kai did not remember what poplar fruit said at all. Instead, he started to write on the paper. Gender. Hu Chuanqiang asked. Haha. Poplar fruit shook his head and smiled softly. He was disdainful of such a stupid question. Male. Hu Chuanqiang asked a few more boring questions before asking. Tell me, why did you maliciously injure people? Poplar fruit's eyes flashed with anger. Although he knew that these people had colluded with Gu Shida, he did not expect that he would be charged with such a crime without even knowing what had happened. I didn't maliciously injure people. Poplar fruit defended himself, even though he felt that it was useless to say it. Why don't you ask what kind of illegal things Gu Shida did? How can you say that I maliciously injured people? The truth now is that Director Gu and you have never met, but you violently injured people in the restaurant. This is something that many restaurant employees can testify to. Hu Chuanxiang tapped on the record book and let Ma Kai write it down. Haha, you guys are really good at distorting the truth. Poplar Fruit was too lazy to argue with them. It was obviously Gu Shida who intended to drug his female subordinates. I bumped into them, and you guys actually tried to confuse right and wrong. You didn't even figure out the facts before convicting me. Since you're here with me, it's not up to you to decide. Hu Chuanxiang smiled. Poplar Fruit shook his head and sneered in his heart. You guys are on your own. He looked up at the camera. Hu Chuanxiang saw it. He turned his head and followed Poplar Fruit's eyes. When he turned back, he looked up and laughed. Are you still looking forward to that thing? I'm not afraid to tell you that because of negligence, I forgot to turn on the camera in the interrogation room today. I'm sorry. Poplar Fruit's heart sank, but he still calmed down. He firmly believed that no matter what they said or did, he must not let go. When Big Brother he came, none of them would be able to escape. Ma Kai's handwriting was sloppy, but he wrote quickly. In a short while, he finished writing the forged interrogation record. He looked at Hu Chuanxiang. Let him put his handprint. Hu Chuanxiang waved his hand. It was not the first time they had done such dirty work. Ma Kai threw the notebook in front of Poplar Fruit. He took out a box of ink from his pocket and smiled ferociously. He walked around to Poplar Fruit's side. Poplar Fruit glanced at the notebook. As he had guessed, all the mistakes were written on him. Moreover, it was written that he had been persuaded to confess. It was really shameless. With such a confession, how could Yanghua allow them to imprint her fingerprints on it? He put his arms under the table and clenched his fists tightly. Even his thumbs were in his fists. Ma Kai squatted down and tried to break Poplar Fruit's fingers. However, Poplar Fruit's hands did not move at all. He could not even break a finger on Poplar Fruit's left hand. Ma Kai exerted all his strength, and his rough face turned red. He used all his strength, but it was to no avail. Haha. Poplar Fruit still had the energy to laugh. His laughter sounded like mockery to Ma Kai's ears. His hatred for Poplar Fruit deepened. Okay. Let's do something to him. Hu Chuanxiang was unhappy. He shouted. If we don't teach him a lesson, he won't know that Lord Ma has 3 eyes. Ma Kai threw the ink on the table angrily. Then he opened the door and went outside. He carried a book and a hammer as he walked in. Chapter 360. Fourth update. Looking at the thick book and the hammer in Ma Kai's hand, Poplar Fruit took a deep breath. Do you know? Hu Chuanxiang waited for Ma Kai to close the door, then pretended to be kind and pretended to explain to Poplar Fruit. We've tested it many times. Put a book on top of it and hit someone. From the outside, you can't see the scars at all. It's just that it's very painful. Hu Chuanxiang exaggeratedly acted and pretended to be in pain. When the hammer goes down, there will be a bang here. I guarantee that there will be internal injuries. If you hit the front, TSK, your ribs will be broken. But even the gods won't be able to find out how you got hurt. Poplar Fruit had seen movies before. Of course, he had seen this kind of torture. He pulled the handcuffs with both hands, but the handcuffs and the table did not move. He raised his head and glanced at Ma Kai. He knew in his heart that he could not escape today. This was the second time Poplar Fruit had been to the police station. The first time was in the United States with Alan. At that time, he had been in the police station as a protected person. The treatment was completely different. They were as free as they were in their own home. Unexpectedly, the second time Poplar Fruit entered the police station of his own country for the first time, he encountered the worst torture. If you don't cooperate well, this will be the result. Hu Chuanxiang sighed hypocritically and said, I can't help it. Poplar Fruit smiled disdainfully in his heart. He knew that even if he obediently pressed his fingerprint, the 2 policemen who colluded with Gu Shida would not let him have an easy time. Ma Kai went behind Poplar Fruit and slapped the book on Poplar Fruit's back. The time for revenge had come. Ma Kai smiled ferociously. When his ugly face smiled, it gave people a creepy feeling. However, Poplar Fruit could not see it. Poplar Fruit did not struggle or twist. He did not dare to move recklessly. Now that he could not dodge, if he moved recklessly and caused Ma Kai's hammer to miss, it would really be a tragedy. Now that there was a book as a cushion, it could at least increase the surface area of the impact. Of course, the force that penetrated through the book was still very impactful, but it was not as dangerous as being hit by a hammer directly. Taking a deep breath, the Poplar Fruit concentrated and activated the internal energy in his body. The thin stream around his body quickly gathered to his back and wrapped around his internal organs. Poplar Fruit wasn't sure if his body could withstand it, but he had to be fully prepared. It was very unusual for Poplar Fruit to not struggle or beg for mercy. However, Hu Chuanxiang and Ma Kai didn't care. They didn't care about Poplar Fruit. Anyway, they had to make Poplar Fruit suffer today. They only remembered Gu Shida's exhortation to make Poplar Fruit suffer a fate worse than death. Ma Kai swung his hammer. He was afraid that he did not control the direction well. If it hit Poplar Fruit's head and killed him, the two of them would not be able to escape. However, he used all his strength when he smashed down. Hu Chuanxiang's order and his own personal grievances made him want to smash Poplar Fruit's head until he vomited blood. Gritting his teeth, the Poplar Fruit took Ma Kai's hammer. Through the book, the Poplar Fruit could feel a strong force. If it weren't for the sponge-like internal energy wrapping around his internal organs, the power of Ma Kai's hammer would have caused serious internal injuries to Poplar Fruit. Even so, the Poplar Fruit still felt his internal organs shake violently. His chest felt stuffy, and he almost lost his breath. Fortunately, the Poplar Fruit's internal energy was Tai Chi then. He spat out a mouthful of turbid chi. Most of the force he received was removed by him, and the rest did not cause any harm. However, the Poplar Fruit still groaned and pretended to be in pain. Although he wasn't injured, he didn't feel good being hammered by his beanstalk head after head. Hit him. Hu Chuanxiang was not satisfied with the effect, so he commanded. Ma Kai smashed 2 more times. The Poplar Fruit still groaned twice, but he didn't feel like he couldn't withstand it at all. In the last 2 hits, the Poplar Fruit mastered the technique of unloading the force. His internal energy was like a strong elastic cotton, spreading out the force of the hammer. Then as his body muscles trembled, the force was removed layer by layer. Hu Chuanxiang scolded. Ma Kai, did you not fucking eat today? Move, I'll do it. After taking Ma Kai's hammer, Hu Chuanxiang pressed one hand on the book and swung the hammer down with the other. Hu Chuanxiang thought too highly of himself. His strength wasn't even as great as Ma Kai's. If he smashed down like this, he wouldn't be able to put any pressure on Yang Gua. This little bit of strength was no different from scratching an itch for him. The Poplar Fruit concentrated and entered that mysterious state again. It was as if he had an extra pair of eyes at the back of his head, and he clearly saw Hu Chuanxiang's movements. Handbook hammer. The Poplar Fruit measured the positions of the 3 in his heart, and he had a plan. Just as Hu Chuanxiang's hammer fell, the Poplar Fruit suddenly twisted his back, and Hu Chuanxiang's hand that was holding the thick book couldn't help but shift. There was only a bang, and the sound of the hammer touching flesh. Ow! Hu Chuanxiang howled loudly. The hammer and book in his hand were all thrown to the ground. He was like a dog whose tail had been stepped on, and he jumped up with his left hand between his legs. The moment the Poplar Fruit moved, Hu Chuanxiang's hammer hit the back of his hand. Although he held back his strength and the angle was not right, this still made Hu Chuanxiang suffer. This kind of pain was as if his left hand was broken. It was a heart-wrenching pain. Boss, how are you? Ma Kai rushed up and asked about his boss's injury. Hiss. Hu Chuanxiang sucked in cold air. How could he speak? He jumped on the spot for a long time before the intense pain subsided. Motherfucker, you fucking tricked me. Hu Chuanxiang looked at his left hand. The back of his hand was swollen. He gritted his teeth and angrily rushed over to kick the Poplar Fruit's chair. Poplar Fruit could not escape this time. After all, he was still handcuffed to the iron table. His whole body fell to the ground because of the fall of the chair. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit used his palm to grab the chain of the handcuffs. His wrist was not bound by the handcuffs. Boss, Do you want to go to the hospital? Ma Kai dutifully played the role of a henchman. He pulled Hu Chuanxiang's left hand to check, and worriedly asked, I don't know if there is a bone injury. However, Hu Chuanxiang, who failed to beat someone but was injured, could not swallow this anger. His mind was full of thoughts of killing Poplar Fruit. Gritting his teeth, Hu Chuanxiang pushed Ma Kai away and kicked Poplar Fruit's body twice. Poplar Fruit held his head and used his internal energy to protect his body. He did not make a sound. Hu Chuanxiang was not satisfied. He shouted, Motherfucker, this kid is a tough bone. Ma Kai, give him something to eat. Everyone, use your votes to hit the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 361. Fifth update. Poplar Fruit did not cry out in pain, nor did he beg for mercy under the torture. What was even more unexpected was that he actually resisted, causing Hu Chuanxiang to hit his own hand. Not only did Hu Chuanxiang not feel any sense of accomplishment, but he was also mad at Poplar Fruit. He shouted, Beat him to death with the stun baton. Boss, Ma Kai reminded him with some concern. The stun baton is too obvious. What are you afraid of? As long as we don't kill him, Gu Shida will take responsibility for us. Hu Chuanxiang glared at Ma Kai with red eyes. Since his boss had said so, Ma Kai quickly turned around and left. Poplar Fruit gritted his teeth and looked up at Hu Chuanxiang with hatred. This policeman's heart was completely black, and he didn't want him to have an easy time. He had used all kinds of methods, and he had been beaten and kicked, but he still wasn't willing to give up. However, Poplar Fruit did not dare to resist. In fact, even if his hands were held, with his strength, Poplar Fruit could still make the two black-hearted policemen kneel down. But what good would it do him to beat them here? If he hurt them, Poplar Fruit would be attacking the police, and they would have every reason to shoot him. If they took out their guns and shot him to death, Poplar Fruit would really die of injustice. Poplar Fruit did not regret letting Hu Chuanxiang hit his own hand, because Hu Chuanxiang could only swallow his anger. Poplar Fruit could say that it was an accident. Yes, an accident. Poplar Fruit's head, which had been heated by anger, calmed down a little. He glanced at the situation in the room and quietly had an idea. The door of the interrogation room was opened again, and Ma Kai walked in with a police stun baton. Because of the hot weather, Poplar Fruit was sweating profusely again. When he came back this time, the black skin on his upper body had been taken off, leaving only a yellow undershirt. His black chest hair was exposed from the undershirt, and it was ugly and disgusting. Boss! Ma Kai walked over and handed the stun baton to Hu Chuanxiang. Come and fight. Hu Chuanxiang scolded impatiently. Are you a fucking pig? My hand is already like this, and you still want to give it to me? Cuff him to the back. Hu Chuanxiang commanded. Yes, yes. Ma Kai hurriedly nodded and bowed. Ma Kai walked to Poplar Fruit's side and took out a key to unlock the handcuffs on one of Poplar Fruit's hands. He was not worried about what would happen to Poplar Fruit, because Poplar Fruit had always shown that he was willing to be beaten and scolded. Moreover, there were two people here. Ma Kai firmly believed that if Poplar Fruit resisted, he would definitely be courting death. Poplar Fruit did not resist. He allowed Ma Kai to twist his arm behind his back and drag him up from the ground. Poplar Fruit was pushed and dragged by Ma Kai. Without them noticing, his right leg seemed to have accidentally kicked a wooden stool, and the wooden stool that had fallen to the ground was kicked to another position. Ma Kai dragged Poplar Fruit and handcuffed Poplar Fruit to the crossbar on the back wall. After coming in, Poplar Fruit did not understand why there was a crossbar installed on the innermost wall. It was similar to the one used in hotel bathrooms to hang towels. Now he finally understood. It was used to handcuff people. He did not forget to kick Poplar Fruit on the ground. Hu Chuanxiang seemed to have vented his anger and turned back to his original position. Poplar Fruit pretended to groan. He raised his eyelids and looked at Hu Chuanxiang's position. In his mind, he made a new calculation and adjustment. These two people seemed to have a perverted tendency to abuse people for fun. Ma Kai turned back to the table and picked up the police stun baton. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Their eyes flashed with ferocious pleasure. As for Ma Kai, he turned to look at Poplar Fruit. He walked over with the police stun baton in his left hand. His mouth curved into a creepy smile. Crackle. Ma Kai pressed the switch on the police stun baton. The tip of the stun baton flashed with a charming blue light. The effect of the electric current made a terrifying sound. Poplar Fruit's eyes could not calm down. He thought he was just being whipped. He did not expect them to want to use the stun baton to electrocute him. Although he had never touched electricity, Poplar Fruit knew it was not to be trifled with. So what if he had internal energy? Poplar Fruit did not think he could withstand an electric shock. Seeing that Poplar Fruit's eyes finally panicked, Ma Kai and Hu Chuanxiang raised their heads and laughed loudly. Fierce. I told you to be fierce. Hu Chuanxiang's mouth was merciless as he proudly shouted. No matter what, this time it seemed like he could not avoid it. Poplar Fruit's heart miserably shouted. Big brother He, where are you? Why aren't you here yet? He could only clench his teeth and endure. Poplar Fruit clenched his teeth again. However, Ma Kai did not act like this. He held the police baton in his right hand, and used his left hand to lift up Poplar Fruit's shirt. He pulled it up and put it on Poplar Fruit's head. This time, Poplar Fruit was really stunned. No. I have to calm down. Ooh. Poplar Fruit forced himself to calm down, and gasped for breath. Although he could not see with his eyes, Poplar Fruit still had the ability to sense. Calming his heart, Yang circulated his internal energy, allowing himself to once again enter that mysterious realm, and successfully see the scene of the outside world. Just as he was able to see, Poplar Fruit saw Ma Kai press the switch of the police baton. The top of the baton flashed with a blue electric light, and it was going straight for his stomach. At that moment, Poplar Fruit completed 2 actions. One was to remember Ma Kai and Hu Chuanxiang's latest position, and the other was to quickly transfer his internal energy to the point where the baton would land. However, just as he had guessed, internal energy could not resist the electric shock. The blue electric light acted on his skin, and instantly penetrated his skin. His internal energy was like a piece of tissue paper in front of the electric shock. It only took a few tenths of a second for the feeling of numbness to spread throughout his whole body. However, when Poplar Fruit faced the electric shock, it was not that he did not have any resistance. After the internal energy cleansing, his body had a very strong resistance. The pain of the electric shock only made Poplar Fruit's body tremble violently. It was not like an ordinary person who instantly lost control and foamed at the mouth. At that moment, Poplar Fruit was forced out of that mysterious realm, but Poplar Fruit still desperately tried to regain control of his body. The process seemed very long, but in reality, it happened in a flash. It was so fast that Ma Kai was still holding the police baton and standing in the same place. It was so fast that Hu Chuanxiang was still laughing with his mouth wide open. According to his memory and plan, Poplar Fruit twisted his body greatly. It seemed that he had inadvertently used his shoulder to hit Ma Kai's arm. Poplar Fruit's angle was very tricky. It happened to hit Ma Kai with a 90-degree turn, but he himself was paralyzed on the ground as if he had been electrocuted. Poplar Fruit pretended to fall to the ground. His legs kicked and hooked, as if it was the aftereffect of being electrocuted. His muscles twitched and he hooked Ma Kai's leg. Ah! Ma Kai lost his center of gravity and fell down with bared fangs and brandished claws. In front of him, Hu Chuanxiang was coincidentally. Chapter 362. 6th Update. Ah. Yang lightly hooked the hook according to the route in her memory. Ma Kai lost his balance and pounced on Hu Chuanxiang with bared fangs and brandished claws. Although he controlled the police stun baton in his hand at the last moment, and did not hit Hu Chuanxiang's head, his body still hit Hu Chuanxiang. The two of them were not far away. Hu Chuanxiang covered his injured hand, and wanted to get closer to see Poplar Fruit's sorry state. This situation happened so suddenly that he did not have time to hug Ma Kai, and did not use his hands to control his body's balance. As a result, his whole body was hit by Ma Kai, who was as thick as a bull. Unable to stand firm, Hu Chuanxiang fell to the side, but the moment he fell to the ground, his pupils instantly widened. A wooden stool appeared in his sight. That's right, it was the wooden stool. Hu Chuanxiang fell on it. Although his hands reflexively supported himself on the ground, it was inevitable that he fell heavily on the stool. The point of impact happened to be Hu Chuanxiang's mouth that did not have time to close. Clack! There was a sound of something breaking. Hu Chuanxiang's forefront teeth were tragically broken by the leg of the wooden stool in this accident. Poplar Fruit's angle and strength were just right. Of course, he did not expect that after being electrocuted, he could still perfectly execute his plan according to the trajectory in his memory. He was covered and fell from the electric shock. No one would think that everything that happened just now was deliberately done by Poplar Fruit. Even that stool, they did not know that Poplar Fruit did something to it. It was as if it was just kicked down by Hu Chuanxiang. Everything seemed to be a coincidence. It was all just an accident. Boss. Ma Kai looked back at Poplar Fruit, who seemed to have been electrocuted on the ground. He hurriedly crawled to Hu Chuanxiang on all fours. It seemed like he was in big trouble. He was accidentally tripped by Poplar Fruit, who fell down, and even caused his boss to fall. Dead. Boss will definitely scold me to death. Ma Kai cried and carefully turned over the unconscious Hu Chuanxiang on the stool. Ah! Ma Kai exclaimed. Hu Chuanxiang's eyes were rolled back, and his mouth was badly mutilated. He looked very scary. He was not afraid of blood. In the past, when he beat criminals, they were covered in wounds and looked worse than Hu Chuanxiang's current appearance. But the one who was injured was Hu Chuanxiang, his boss. Ma Kai panicked. He called out to Hu Chuanxiang and pinched his philtrum. The only thing missing was mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Boss, wake up. Ma Kai cried out. It's all my fault. I'm so stupid. Please don't let anything happen to you. Yang Guo pretended to be electrocuted and lay on the ground. From time to time, her legs would twitch, as if the spasms from the electric shock had not disappeared. But in reality, it was him laughing. Through the top covering his head, Poplar Fruit used his internal energy to see everything in the outside world. Everything was going according to the script he had written. It was just that Ma Kai, that rough and burly man, was hugging Hu Chuanxiang with a face full of resentment, misfortune, and worry. It was a little funny. Yang Guo tried hard not to laugh out loud, but his stomach was cramping from trying to hold back his laughter. He could only shake his body slightly. Poplar Fruit was not completely immersed in the complacency of his plan succeeding. He was still worried because although Hu Chuanxiang fell on the stool as he had planned, he could not control the angle and strength of Hu Chuanxiang hitting the stool. If Hu Chuanxiang really hit that vital part, it could be a life. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit did not have to worry for too long. Hu Chuanxiang slowly woke up. Cough, cough. Just as Hu Chuanxiang opened his eyes, he coughed violently. His bloody lips finally spat out the broken tooth stuck in his throat. The broken tooth with a blurry bloody foam sprayed onto Ma Kai's face. Ma Kai felt disgusted, but he did not dare to leave Hu Chuanxiang to wipe his face. He could only smile foolishly and say, "Boss, you're awake?" Hu Chuanxiang took a long time to recover. He raised his trembling right hand and touched his mouth. With a sobbing tone he asked, "Where's the lotus root tooth?" With all his front teeth broken, Hu Chuanxiang's words were not clear. Pa. Ma Kai slapped himself hard and begged in a low voice, "Boss, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I caused you to fall. Where's my teeth?" Hu Chuanxiang's hands grabbed Ma Kai's sweatshirt, shook it hard, and asked with tears in his eyes. The interrogating officer was already in this state, so the interrogation could not continue. Hu Chuanxiang was sent to the hospital by Ma Kai in a daze. He now had contusions on his hands, a few broken teeth, and a broken lip. He needed to go to the hospital quickly for treatment. However, Ma Kai did not let go of Poplar Fruit. In his heart, he still regarded Poplar Fruit as the main culprit. If it were not for Poplar Fruit, how could he have failed and caused his boss to be so miserable? Before leaving, Ma Kai told the other policemen in the police station, "Put him in the 8th prison." 8th prison? The younger policeman opened his mouth wide in surprise. "Just do as I tell you to. Why are you talking nonsense?" Ma Kai impatiently threw down a sentence and drove Hu Chuanxiang straight to the hospital. Why was the young policeman so surprised? What kind of place was the 8th prison? We all know that there is a difference between prison, detention center, and detention center. Not everyone who is caught will be put in prison. Prison is generally used to hold criminals who have been convicted and sentenced by the court, and the criminals who enter prison will have to serve a long sentence before they are released. Detention center is very similar to prison, but there is a fundamental difference. Generally, it is used to hold criminals who have violated the law of public security. The detention time is very short, and most of them leave after 10 days. For example, Poplar Fruit has not been completely convicted, so he is called a suspect, although we know that Poplar Fruit is not guilty. He cannot be put in prison or detention center. Suspects who have not been convicted and whose trial has not been completed will be put in detention center. However, there are exceptions. Some of the sentences are lighter. For example, some criminals who have less than a year in prison will also stay in detention center. Cell number 8 was a cell marked with the character 8 in this district's detention center. It didn't hold short-term petty criminals, but suspects who were suspected of major crimes. Some of them look gentle, but in fact they are extremely vicious. Some criminals have even committed heinous crimes and are temporarily detained here, waiting for the judicial process to be completed before they are sent to prison. The prison guards in this area will usually throw these big bad criminals together to make it easier to manage them. This will prevent them from being assigned to different cells, which will make the entire detention center jittery and uneasy. Tomorrow will still be breaking out. There will be 6 updates. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 363. First update. Let's go. Opening the iron gate of the detention center and entering the prison area. The young policeman looked back at Poplar Fruit and said softly. He turned around and led Poplar Fruit inside. The moment he turned around, he sighed softly and shook his head slightly. From the looks of Poplar Fruit, he was younger than him, and his gentle appearance made people feel that he was still a child studying in school. No matter how he looked at it, he felt that he was easy to bully, especially in the complex environment of the detention center. The young policeman didn't understand why Makai asked him to put Poplar Fruit in the 8th cell full of vicious criminals. He could imagine what would happen to Poplar Fruit with messy hair and a haggard and weak appearance. Like a sheep in a pack of tigers, it was very likely that he would be torn to pieces in less than a moment. What the young policeman knew was that Poplar Fruit, this poor guy, must have provoked Makai. Otherwise, why would Makai use such cruel means to deal with him? The young policeman had just worked for less than 2 years. There were a lot of things he couldn't see through. Or it could be said that his heart wasn't completely black. He still had a trace of pity in his heart, but in front of Hu Chuanxiang and Makai, these 2 old people who were higher than him, he didn't have the ability to interrupt, he could only obey. Here comes another one. The corridor was very long, and the 8th cell was at the innermost end on the left. Poplar Fruit had to pass by several cells. Seeing that there was a newcomer, the people in the cells all leaned on the air vent above the iron gate and whistled at Poplar Fruit. Yo, what a handsome guy. There was also this kind of weird and indecent voice. There was also someone who agreed. TSK, such tender skin. How many years has it been since I've seen such a good thing? You motherfucker, don't fight with me. The first guy scolded. Pretty boy, come to Big Brother's number 5. Big Brother guarantees that no one will dare to bully you. As long as you wash your ass obediently, haha. As he spoke, he continued to thrust his crotch forward as if he had not had enough. It was extremely disgusting. This reminded Yonghua of the teabag in the American drama Prison Break. However, Robert Kane was different. Kaniep's teabag was much more perverted than him. He was an evil character that made people feel extremely uncomfortable. Yonghua didn't pay any attention to him. He walked forward expressionlessly. How boring. Such a good little fresh meat flew away when it was in my mouth. The pervert from the 5th prison said in boredom as he placed his arm on the bars of the metal gate. This kid is going to the 8th prison. When someone saw that Poplar Fruit didn't stop after arriving at the 7th prison, he shouted as if he had discovered a new continent. What? There's a new person in the 8th prison? This news immediately caused a commotion on the left side of the detention center. Every prison guard stood up and pushed aside the people blocking the door to look out through the bars. What's all the commotion about? A prison guard impatiently took out his baton and knocked on the metal gate twice. He scolded. If you don't want to suffer, behave yourself. The young police officer walked to the door of the 8th prison, turned around, and looked at Poplar Fruit with a complicated expression before gesturing to the prison guard beside him to open the door. The door to the 8th prison was pulled open. It was quiet inside. Perhaps because it was the innermost prison, the lighting was dim, like a black hole that could devour people. Go in. The young police officer gently pushed Poplar Fruit's shoulder. Poplar Fruit wasn't afraid. He stopped moving his chest and walked in. Just as he brushed past the young police officer, Poplar Fruit heard the young police officer say to him in an almost inaudible voice, "Be careful." Poplar Fruit turned his eyes in surprise and looked at the young police officer. He smiled slightly and walked in with his head held high. Back at Poplar Fruit's teacher's apartment near the school, Fong Beibei had just made a bottle of warm water for Kiki to drink. Although Fong Beibei had to revise today and didn't have time to play with Kiki, Kiki could still have fun by herself. Fong Beibei remembered Poplar Fruit's instructions and gave Kiki more water. It was already afternoon. Fong Beibei called Poplar Fruit twice. The first time was in the afternoon, but no one picked up. The first time she called, it was mentioned in the previous chapter that Duan Xueqing was calling her family and didn't pay attention. Song Jiwen didn't have time to check the missed calls, so he forgot about it later. The second time she called, Poplar Fruit's phone was turned off. Fong Beibei's heart felt a little stifled. There was an indescribable feeling of discomfort. Now she couldn't even focus on her revision. She was still holding the book in her hand, but her eyes were staring blankly at Kiki's figure. It was as if she had lost her usual spirit. Kiki felt Fong Beibei's gaze. She grabbed the milk bottle with both hands and sucked hard on the warm water inside. She suddenly turned her head and met Fong Beibei's eyes. She didn't make a sound. She turned her head and swayed her body as she walked forward. Every step she took was on the seams of the living room's tiles. It seemed to be very interesting. After taking 2 steps, Kiki suddenly turned her head back and met Fong Beibei's eyes again. Hee. Kiki bit the milk bottle and laughed foolishly. She seemed to be proud of herself for winning a game with Beibei's sister. A cough. Kiki obviously forgot that she was still drinking water. Her laughter made her choke, and she started coughing violently. At this time, Fong Beibei's unfocused eyes finally regained focus. She hurriedly threw the book in her hand to the side and walked over to Chi-Chi's side in 3 steps. She hugged her and gently patted her chest. Be careful when you drink water. Fong Beibei took the milk bottle from Kiki's hand and put it on the table next to her. She continued to massage Kiki's smooth and tender chest. Are you feeling better? Chi-Chi coughed twice softly before nodding her head. Fong Beibei looked at Kiki. She couldn't help but raise her eyeballs. She hesitated for a moment and asked, Kiki, did Papa go to see Auntie today? Kiki thought for a moment and shook her head with certainty. She said in a childish voice, Auntie went home. Papa said she was in the capital. Sister Beibei, what is the capital? The capital is a city far, far away from us. Fong Beibei's mood relaxed a little. However, she still asked Kiki another question. Kiki, what has your papa been doing recently? I won't tell you. Kiki naughtily covered her mouth and laughed. Papa said to keep it a secret. Then secretly tell Sister Beibei. Fong Beibei tempted Kiki and said, I won't tell your papa. In the end, the love for Sister Beibei prevailed. Kiki hesitated for a moment and put her arms around Fong Beibei's neck. She put her mouth next to her ear and whispered, Papa is going to give Sister Beibei a big surprise. And Kiki knows a big cake. Fong Beibei was confused by Kiki. Her birthday wasn't in a few months. How could there be a big cake as a surprise? This was actually just Kiki's imagination. In her little mind, the happiest thing was to eat a cake on her birthday. Oh right, I forgot to thank Book Friend Prince for his reward the day before yesterday. Recently, the Book Friend's rewards have been really good. Brother Wuxia XXO? Zeta is not good. There are still many book friends. Xiaohan doesn't have time to list them one by one. Xiaohan thanks everyone here. Today is still the 6th chapter. Looking for monthly votes. Looking for recommendations. Greater than over equal to that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.